I am Lee Chong-chu, and I woke up as the 16-year-old sect leader of the Clear Sky Sect, holding 7 starving children and a mountain my own master had just walked away from. Then the Tao lineage opened in my vision, reading every child's hidden destiny and handing me the supreme clarity primordial scripture, a true immortal technique in a world that only knew martial arts. The beggar girl I fed that winter carried a heavenly thunder spiritual root. My sect was not dying. It had not started yet. Pause for 2 seconds and click like. Click subscribe. Your support is the only reason these videos get made. Before any of that landed, I was nothing. Let me start there. My master tells me that from this day I am sect leader of the Clear Sky Sect, and I am to take care of my junior brothers and junior sisters. Then he turns and walks down the mountain without looking back once. His face still looks like a man in his early 30s, set with a determination that has nothing to do with us. His green robes flare on the wind, like he is already halfway to being a story someone else tells. It is dusk, the sky packed with crimson cloud. The far ridges lined as if somebody drew fire along them. I stand at the mountain gate and cannot make my face behave. I told him the sect is nothing without him, that the little ones need a master and not a legend, and that seeking immortals is a story drunks tell at a way house. Master Im Simpung listened and left anyway. I am 16, and the eldest, and my 6 junior brothers and junior sisters are all younger, the smallest barely past 10. Handing me 7 mouths and calling it an inheritance is not a promotion. It is a sentence. I wanted to travel with a sword, the open road, the grudges and the settling of them, the carefree life a wandering swordsman gets in every tale. I have had a bellyful of quiet days on this mountain. Some nights I still miss my old life, raging at a shooter game until my hands ached, then scrolling short videos until sleep took me. I shout after him that if I ruin the Clear Sky Sect, he had better not blame me. My voice comes out higher than I want, and the mountains throw it back twice. He has reached the edge of the woods, and he lifts a hand and waves without turning around. A small hand catches my sleeve and tugs. I turn and find Lee Sagium looking up at me, 10 years old, holding on like the fabric is the only solid thing left. She asks in a small voice whether I am going to abandon them too. The anger goes out of me and I look across the rest of them. Gang Joha stands apart with his jaw set, the way he has for 2 years now, and the other 5 watch me with worry plain on their faces. Something heavy settles across my shoulders and does not come off. But this is not the transmigration life I ordered. Text appears in the air in front of my eyes, and it is not the sky and not the sunset. The lines tell me I have become the head of a sect for the first time, and a thing called the Tao lineage is activating and inspecting the Clear Sky Sect. Inspection successful, evaluation successful, and the verdict lands as one flat word: unranked. Because this is my first time as a sect leader, I am granted 1 destiny selection and 1 Tao lineage legacy. I rub my eyes hard enough to see spots, and the text has not moved. I glance at the others, at Lee Sagium still holding my sleeve, at Gang Joha pretending not to watch me. Not one of them reacts to the glowing words in front of my face. So the golden finger finally showed up. 16 years late, but it showed up. My heart is going hard enough to hear. I wonder whether the prompts can be put aside, and the instant the thought forms the text folds away into nothing, then unfolds again when I reach for it. That settles it, because a hallucination does not take orders. I have lived 2 lives, so my heart nature is not an ordinary 16-year-old's, and I put my face back together before anyone can read it. I tell them what I shouted was temper, that since Master wants to go, we let him go, and that from here on, we rely on each other and nobody else. They all light up, which is a little embarrassing, because their reliance on me was always greater than their reliance on Master Im Simpung. He was away most of every year, and this sect has been run by me for most of my life, except for Gang Joha. Every one of them spent their childhood clinging to my leg. I comfort them a while longer with my mind upstairs on those prompts, then hand out work to get free of them. Jang Okchun sees to dinner, Lee Dongwol keeps an eye on Omana and Lee Sepun, and Lee Sagyam, and I go back into the courtyard. The Clear Sky Sect sounds like something. In reality, it is 8 people. And as of this afternoon, 7. We have 3 courtyards, and that is the whole sect: 1 master's practice courtyard, 1 where the disciples sleep, 1 for whatever nobody knows where else to put. As eldest disciple, I have a house to myself, which my junior brothers and junior sisters have resented cheerfully for years. I sit on my bed and think about how to look at this Tao lineage properly, and a phantom panel opens with the whole sect laid out in lines. It gives me the school name, Clear Sky Sect, which can be renamed, and the sect leader, which is me now. Number of disciples, 7. with an invitation to click through for detail. Evaluation rank, unranked with development details behind it. Dao Protection Formation, none. And Dao Protection Divine Beast, none. Available Destiny Draws, 1. And available Legacy Rewards, 1. I get a hard wash of familiarity, because this is a game interface. In my last life I sank a shameful number of hours into mobile cultivation games, the kind where you collect disciples and watch numbers go up. Apparently that is a transferable skill now. I click through and the panel blooms into 7 portraits arranged by age, each with a name beside it. Li Chengchu, which is me. Then Zhang Okchun, Gang Joha, Li Dongwol, O Mana, Li Sapung, and Li Seijiam. All 7 of us are orphans, Master Im Simpung, carried up from the foot of the mountain. Our background's all different, and he never once talked to us about where we came from. But I have lived 2 lives, and in this one I had consciousness from birth, so I know exactly what my own background is. I still have no intention of looking for the people who made me. That cord was cut a long time ago, and not by me. Zhang Okchun's information opens. He is male, 15, and his loyalty reads as 2 numbers instead of 1. 89 toward me and 23 toward the school, out of a maximum of 100. His cultivation aptitude is mediocre, his comprehension ability good, and his destiny entries are internal affairs comet and forbearance. I raise an eyebrow at that split, which means when my second junior brother grows up, the odds are good he walks off this mountain. The explanations unfold. Internal affairs comet means a talent for the running of things, and forbearance means he can endure when a problem lands on him. Neither is complicated, and both are exactly the boy who serves everyone else their rice before he sits down. The Dao lineage is starting to look less like a novelty and more like a weapon. Through these panels I see every disciple's aptitude, every talent, every loyalty number moving, and managing hearts and raising disciples is simple when the answers are printed on the page. I turn to my third junior brother, Gang Joha. When he was small, he hung off me the same as the rest. For 2 years now, he has been contrary about everything and worked against me at every turn, which has grated more than I admit out loud. Then his loyalty number comes up and I have to read it twice. 96 toward me. Higher than Zhang Okchun and higher than anyone I have seen. And toward the Clear Sky Sect, exactly 1, which means he would walk out the gate tomorrow and not look back. Does this kid have a problem? He likes me more than anybody here and spends every day picking fights with me. Then I read further down and my mood turns over. Cultivation aptitude excellent, comprehension ability outstanding, and the destiny entries read innate sword fanatic and hidden flood dragon in the mortal world. The first makes him a natural sword cultivator with very high comprehension for the Tao of the sword and very strong control over blades. The second says his road will be rough, and that resolving the calamities in his fate turns him into a flying dragon with luck nothing can stand against. Good heavens, this powerful, sitting in my courtyard sulking at me over the rice. And then I understand what I did, and it lands badly. 2 years ago, Master Im Simpung rewarded me with a precious sword, one of only 2 in the entire sect. Gang Joa asked me for it, and I told him no, because he was 12 and a sharp weapon in a child's hand is how somebody loses a hand. An innate sword fanatic meets a sword, reaches for it, and is refused by the person he trusts most in the world. No wonder he has spent 2 years unable to look at me straight. If we had not been close, he would have taken that sword out of my room by any means available. Everything I have been holding against him drains out and leaves pity behind. I tell him out loud, to the empty room, that his senior brother misunderstood him and it is all right. In the future, I will put a good sword in his hands and let him shine for the Clear Sky Sect. The Tao lineage has been in my life less than an hour, and I am already thinking like a sect leader instead of a boy waiting to run away. Down the rest of the list, Li Tongwol, O Mana, Li Sapung, and Li Seijiam all show respectable loyalty toward me, though Gang Joha still holds the highest. Their aptitudes and comprehension beat Zhang Okchun's and come nowhere near Gang Joha's, and their destinies are mostly their personalities and formal language. One of Omana's is good, tiger body and elephant strength, which explains how he has carried a grown man's load since he was small. The problem with Omana has never been his body. The only one who worries me is my 6th junior brother, Li Sapung. Li Sapung and Li Seijiam came up this mountain together, blood brother and sister, him 2 years older. They did not have my surname before, and Master Im Simpung gave it to them to tell everyone whose family they belong to now. Li Sapung is 12, loud and quick and always underfoot, and I have always liked having him along. His destiny entries are wolf ambition and unscrupulous, and the explanations are as ugly as the names. prone to breeding ambition, never satisfied with what he has, willing to do whatever it takes to get where he is going. If this kid ever decides he wants the seat I am sitting in, do he and I end up on opposite ends of a blade? Then I check his loyalty and put the thought away. 92 toward me and 40 toward the sect, which means I am overthinking a 12-year-old. I will pay closer attention to him than I would have. I sit back when I am finished, pleased, because the Clear Sky Sect has more in it than I ever knew, and I have run this place for years without seeing any of it. The only frustration is that the panel will not show me my own cultivation aptitude or comprehension ability. Apparently, the sect leader does not get to audit himself. Gang Jo-ha can be raised into the strongest fighter the sect will ever put on a field, and Jang Ok-chun can run everything that is not a fight. I have a civil pillar and a martial one in a sect of 7 children on a mountainside. I have to give Master Im Simpung his credit. He walked the martial world for decades and met more orphans than he could count, and he brought exactly these 7 home. That is not luck. That is an eye. He used to teach us martial arts too when he was here. Looking at what I have now, I would call those amateur skills, and I would not say it to his face. I check the sect's development details next, and there's almost nothing to read. The Clear Sky Sect has no foundation to speak of, and the panel does not pretend otherwise. So I go to the 2 things that matter. The destiny selection tells me I may choose one destiny from among the disciples and copy it onto myself. The legacy reward tells me I may randomly obtain a legacy, and it lists the possibilities, cultivation techniques, spells, divine abilities, unique skills, formations, miscellaneous arts. That second line takes the breath out of me. I have the mountain and the disciples, and up until this evening I had nothing to teach them. A sect with no art is a house with no roof. And now the Tao lineage is offering to hand me one destiny and 1 legacy. It is not much. It is enough to start. I bring up Gang Jo-ha's portrait again, put my attention on his destiny, and do not hesitate. His talent is very strong, and as of right now, it is mine as well. The selection is a copy, not a theft, and it takes nothing from Gang Jo-ha, which is the only reason I can do it without a knot in my stomach. The moment I confirm, my consciousness gets dragged down into a dream. It is long and blurred, and I cannot find the edges of it. And in it, I practice sword forms without stopping. The sword in my hand keeps changing, weight and length and balance shifting between one repetition and the next, and I never wonder about it. There is no goal and no opponent, only the form in my arms and the endless tireless repetition, until the whole thing goes numb and smooth. When I open my eyes, it feels like it lasted a moment. It is full dark outside my window, and moonlight has spilled across the floorboards, putting a little gray light into the room. Jang Ok-chun's voice comes through the door telling me it is time to eat. The hesitation in it says he has already called 3 times and is working up the nerve to come in. I call back that I am coming, and he lets out a breath I can hear through the wood, before his footsteps go away. I try to recall the dream and cannot hold any part of it. No process to retrace, no technique sitting newly in my memory. I stand up and check myself over, and my body is exactly the body I went to sleep in. Then I look at the precious sword on the small table by the wall. It is the one Master Im Simpung gave me, the heavenly rainbow sword, and in its scabbard it weighs about 8 pounds, which is 8 pounds more than I have usually been willing to carry. I take the scabbard in my right hand, lift it, and close my left around the hilt. My eyebrows go up on their own, because there is something inside this sword, and it feels close to me the way a person can feel close. I have handled this blade 100 times and never once felt anything but weight. If I had to put a word on it, I would say spirituality, and I am standing in my dark room, holding a sword that is aware of me. So that is what an innate sword fanatic is. I want badly to draw it, but I put it back on the table and go for the door. The panel will still be there tomorrow, and the little ones will not stop worrying on their own. Master left this afternoon, and their senior brother locked himself in his room for hours without a word. Children fill that kind of silence with the worst thing they can imagine. I push the door open onto the courtyard. They are already gathered around the long table, an old tree beside it with an oil lamp in the branches, the light pooling on the tabletop and leaving their faces half in shadow. Normally this crowd eats like starving ghosts who just got their bodies back. Tonight, every one of them sits up straight, waiting for me. They call out over each other, telling me to hurry up and come eat, half standing and waving me in. Even Gang Jo-ha, who guards his pride like a miser, lets his shoulders come down when he sees me. Warmth goes through my chest and I let it. I am going to make something out of this sect. The idea of wandering the martial world with a sword on my back has already gone somewhere in the back of my mind and quietly shut the door. I have the Tao lineage now, and whatever life I get out of this, I am getting it here. I cross to Lee Sagium, ruffle her hair on the way past, and drop into my seat. I tell everyone to sit down and eat and talk, and I make sure my smile is the same one they have seen every night of their lives. It works, and they relax all at once and start serving out rice and reaching for dishes. Jang Okchun serves everyone before himself, the way he always does, looking older than 15 while he does it. The table seats the 7 of us comfortably and holds 3 dishes and 1 soup, and the only meat is the little bit minced into the soup. With Master Im Simpung away most of the year, we mostly eat what we grow, and an egg fried up is an occasion. I pick up my chopsticks and tell them, in the flattest voice I can manage, that Master has gone and left the position of sect leader to me. I have thought it over and decided to make the Clear Sky Sect big and strong, because this is our home. Lee Sapung is on his feet before I finish, hollering that we will make it big and strong, and Omana starts hollering after him without any idea what he is agreeing to. I look at Lee Sapung, 12 years old and shining with enthusiasm, and I think about Wolf Ambition and Unscrupulous sitting in his file. That face and that entry do not belong to the same boy. One of them is lying and I do not know which yet. Gang Joha cannot help himself and asks whether big and strong is really what we are calling it, relying on this lot. My impression of him is excellent, since he is both the most loyal person at this table and the strongest talent in the sect. So I take it without heat. I tell him we are all young and there are infinite roads out from here. The next thing we do is train hard and make ourselves strong. And when we are grown, we go down the mountain and recruit disciples of our own. The table erupts into noise. Everybody has an opinion about the disciples we do not have yet. Gang Joha's temper goes out like a snuffed lamp. He curls his lip and mutters just loud enough for himself that training is all very well, but on what? Master scraps of amateur skill, and the man did not even leave us a cultivation technique. Jang Okchun finishes serving and asks the practical question. Master left 3 secret manuals, one of fist techniques, one of sword techniques, one of movement techniques, and he wants to know which everyone should be practicing. I scoop up a mouthful of rice and tell him I will assign them properly when the time comes, and that for now everyone sets aside time each day to train. Then I tell him the thing that actually matters, which is food. Once we are training seriously, our appetites will climb through the roof, meat most of all. So we start now. Chickens, pigs, more ground under vegetables. Jang Okchun's eyes come alight and he starts nodding before I am done. He has been waiting his entire life for somebody to hand him a plan. Nobody else at this table wants to hear about vegetables. Lee Dongwall is listening, and the rest are visibly hoping this part ends soon. But with Master gone, none of them can argue about extra work. I give Jang Okchun the requirements and tell him the whole thing is his, and that he may deploy any disciple however he likes. Then I tell him plainly that he is steady and he reads, and that the future of the Clear Sky Sect will lean on him more than he knows. Go and do it, and if anybody refuses to listen, he is to come to me. I will not promise to break any legs. I will promise they hurt for 3 or 5 days. A ripple of flinching goes around the table, and even Gang Joha's face does something complicated. I have hit every person sitting here at some point in their childhood, and none of them has forgotten it. Authority on a mountain with no laws is built out of exactly that kind of memory. Jang Okchun tells me, glowing, that he will not let me down. He has wanted to run something for years, and never had the nature to seize it, and apart from Lee Dongwol, nobody in this sect has ever been afraid of him. I nod and turn the talk to the martial world, because I want them going to bed excited, instead of frightened. Small as we are, Master Im Simpung has a name out there, and every year some wandering hero comes up our mountain and tells us stories over our own soup. The land under our feet belongs to the Great Li Dynasty, 9 provinces and 14 lands. The Clear Sky Sect sits in the Taegon mountain range in Goju Prefecture, and for 100 miles in any direction there is nothing but big mountain, scattered villages, and a few towns. The nearest city is 200 miles away. This is a feudal dynasty, not unlike the old histories I read in my last life. Cold weapons everywhere and everybody training in something. In Goju Prefecture alone, there are more gangs than anyone has counted, along with 7 schools known across the whole world. When I was small, I watched a wandering swordsman breathe out a stream of internal chi that crossed 20 feet of open air and cut a mark into a tree trunk. I thought I had seen a heavenly being. That was the day I decided I would practice martial arts. This is the martial world I used to read about at 2 in the morning in another life. How was I supposed to not want it? And I still have one Dao lineage legacy waiting. My chest goes hot at the thought. If the Clear Sky Sect will become anything it needs, an ultimate art at its center, something that holds the whole sect up. Names are not made in the martial world with borrowed fundamentals. and Master Im Simpung's amateur skills will not carry 7 children anywhere. Dinner runs a full hour and nobody here behaves like children whose master walked out this afternoon. As long as I am here, they are not afraid, and that is either the most flattering thing that has ever happened to me or the heaviest. They scatter, and Jang Ok-chun and Lee Dong-wol stay behind to clear the table. I go back to my room, sit cross-legged on the bed, put my excitement down where it cannot interfere, call up the Tao lineage panel, and open the legacy. The panel tells me I have obtained a chi-absorbing cultivation technique called the Supreme Clarity Primordial Scripture, and asks whether I accept. Supreme Clarity Primordial Scripture. That is not a fist manual name. That sounds like something out of the Immortal Tales, and I have no idea yet whether it is worth anything. I accept, and memory floods into me all at once. Across the courtyard that night, Jang Ok-chun and Gang Jo-ha and Omana and Lee Se-pung all lie awake a long time. Lee Se-pung is the worst of them too, wound up to stop talking, dragging his senior brothers back from sleep over and over to describe a future none of them can picture. In the other room, Lee Dong-wol and Lee Se-jiam whisper about being useful, about carrying part of what has landed on their senior brother until they run out of words. The moon goes down and the sun comes up, and the first light of it comes over the ridges and lays itself across the mountains. Gang Jo-ha is out of his room early, working through his fist forms in the courtyard, and his eyes keep going to my door with worry in them. He remembers me saying when we were both much younger that I would travel the world with a sword and take my grudges and my kindnesses as they came. Now there are 6 of us hanging off my sleeves, and he is wondering whether his senior brother resents it. A rooster goes off, and Jang Ok-chun and Lee Dong-wol come out, greet each other, and get straight to work while Gang Jo-ha keeps to his own business and does not touch a chore. Those two never complain, and it is entirely because of them that the rest of us have had easy lives. Inside my room, I open my eyes after sitting through the whole night, and the world comes back into focus fast. I stretch without meaning to, and every muscle in my back complains about it. Then I go back through the details of the Supreme Clarity Primordial Scripture, and my face changes. Wait, is this actually an immortality cultivation technique? The scripture is built around drawing in the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, taking in the essence of the sun and moon, and condensing origin chi inside the body, nourishing origin, spiritual consciousness, sun illumination, and every layer of the mind cultivation method carries an extension of lifespan. It does not gesture at this, it gives numbers. Reaching the spiritual consciousness realm means 300 years of life, and the sun illumination realm means 600. I sit on my bed with my hands on my knees and cannot speak. I have spent this entire life believing I landed in a martial world. Internal energy, internal chi. Wandering swordsman cutting trees at 20 paces. A ceiling somewhere not far above that. Master must have lost his mind, I thought, chasing immortals off this mountain at his age. Master was not out of his mind. He was right. And he left before anyone could tell him so. Which means the Tao lineage panel is not the panel of a martial forest school. It is the panel of an immortality cultivating Taoist sect, and it has been telling me exactly that since yesterday afternoon in words I was not ready to read. If a person can cultivate immortality, why in the world would anyone practice martial arts? My first instinct is to go after Master Im Simpung and tell him, and my second is to think it through. The second wins. A night has passed and I have no idea which direction he took at the bottom of the mountain. More than that, the moment a method of cultivating immortality is loose in the world, it stops being a gift and becomes a target painted on everyone near it. The martial world is full of schools and aristocratic families wiped down to the foundations because somebody found out they held a divine technique. The Tao lineage cannot be exposed, not to a soul, not to my junior brothers and junior sisters, not to the ones with loyalty in the 90s. Loyalty numbers go up, which means they also go down. I go looking for somewhere to sit and cultivate. The scripture is specific. Early morning is best, when the purple energy leaves the east and the essences of sun and moon overlap, and that window is the richest part of the day. The door bangs and Gang Jo-ha turns from his fist forms to look. I watch the relief go through him when he sees my eyes clear, my back straight, and nothing in me broken overnight. I ask why he is out here throwing punches when what he loves is the sword, then tell him to go into my room, take the heavenly rainbow sword and practice with it. It is alone, and he had better not get ideas about keeping it. He stands there thrown. I have never let him lay a finger on that blade. He can feel something in me has changed and reads it as the thing he feared, that Master's leaving forced his senior brother to grow up in a single afternoon. The old Gang Jo-ha would have been wild with joy at getting that sword. This one just aches, and the ache is for me. Maybe, he thinks, it is time he started training. Like it matters. I take the path toward the back mountain. The Clear Sky Sect sits on a mountainside with dense forest behind it, and big mountain on all four sides, steep enough that the nearest village is an hour downhill at speed. There are wild animals up here, but no wolves and no tigers, and what you watch for is snakes, ants, and spiders. I know this peak well enough to walk it in the dark. I sit cross-legged at the cliff edge facing the rising sun, rest my hands on my legs, and start breathing the way the mind cultivation method describes. Sensing the origin chi of heaven and earth turns out to be a process rather than an event. The scripture is clear that only after enough repetition can a person open their mouth and swallow the origin chi of the world as easily as air. Down in the courtyard, Gang Joha glances up mid-form, finds me sitting on a cliff edge like a statue, and has no idea what to make of it. When Omana and Lee Sapung and Lee Sagium get up and see it, they make much noise. Lee Sagium even calls up to me, but I am already too far under to answer. I sit there the entire morning and do not condense a single thread of origin chi. I am not discouraged. 600 years is worth a bad morning. Coming back down, I get questions from every direction, so I give them a story with just enough truth in it to hold. I tell them, mysteriously, that I have an internal skill from before I came up this mountain. With master gone, I have to cultivate it, and once I succeed, I will teach all of them. Gang Joha asks, before he can stop himself, whether I have a family legacy too. I ask what exactly he means by two, and he snorts and refuses to answer. I let it go. Whatever martial legacy my third junior brother is sitting on, it is not going to measure up against mine. The days go by. Jang Ok-chan keeps everyone busy. The vegetable garden gets bigger, the woodpile gets higher, and even Lee Sagium treats the whole thing as an enormous game. There is laughter all over this sect for the first time in a long while, and I do nothing but cultivate. 7 full days pass before I condense a single thread of origin chi, and when it happens, I feel myself cross into a domain that was not open to me before. Nourishing Origin Realm. First layer. I hide in the woods like a thief, pick out a tree, and spit the origin chi out of my abdomen at it, and it leaves me like an arrow off a string. The trunk is thick enough that 2 people could not get their arms around it. A hole is punched clean through it the width of my finger, and I can see the forest on the other side. That is not internal energy, and it is not what the wandering swordsman did at 20 paces. That is something else, and it came out of a boy who has been cultivating for a week. I stand there with my fists clenched, and the only thing dampening it is that the thread is spent. One use and it is gone, and I have to refine it all over again. I decide that night that I start teaching the others tomorrow, because getting everyone strong early is correct. If enemies of Master Im Simpung come up this mountain looking for him, or bandits decide a sect of children is worth robbing, me alone is not an answer. There is a second reason, found while picking the panel apart. Destiny selections and legacy rewards are both tied to the Dao lineage's assessment of the sect. The stronger the Clear Sky Sect gets, the more destinies I select, and the more legacies I draw. Every disciple I raise makes me stronger, personally and directly. By evening, Jang Ok-chun and Omana and Lee Sapung come back up carrying bamboo baskets soaked through with sweat, and the rest of us go down to meet them and take the loads. Jang Ok-chun tells me, delighted with himself, that he explained our situation to the villagers and did farm work in exchange. He came away with 3 hens, 1 big rooster, and much vegetables and fruit. Omana, the largest of us, adds in a low mutter that there is also about 3 pounds of meat. Lee Sapung, who never stops talking, has collapsed flat on the ground with his tongue out like a dog. I tell them the villagers have treated us well, and we will be repaying that for years. I have already decided where the Clear Sky Sect's future disciples come from, and it is the village at the bottom of this mountain. We carry it all in, get it put away, and half an hour later the 7 of us are around the long table with Lee Tongwol pouring water. I tell them tomorrow morning I pass on the technique, and they cultivate alongside me. The noise this produces is considerable. Everybody wants to know what it is called. I tell them the technique is the Hanwhan scripture, from this day the ultimate art of the Clear Sky Sect, and that nobody passes it to an outsider without my consent. What I do not tell them is that Hanwhan scripture is a name I made up on the way to the table. What I am feeding them, layer by careful layer, is the supreme clarity primordial scripture. In fairness, I have not fully received the whole thing myself. Parts of the legacy memory are blurred at the edges, and the scripture says I cannot recall them until my realm is high enough to hold them. Gang Johan asks, skeptical as ever, whether this Hanwhan scripture can even cultivate internal chi. I tell him he will find out when he practices it. He looks put out, and I know exactly why. He misses arguing with me. And after 2 years of picking fights, the one thing he cannot stand is me being pleasant. Then he surprises me by speaking up properly. We need more than internal skill, he says, and cannot all practice the same martial art. He will not presume to plan for the others, but he wants the 5th junior brother put with him. He will teach Omana external skills that, combined with the boy's inborn divine power, can make him a major pillar of the Clear Sky Sect. I tell him at long last my 3rd junior brother is dropping gold coins, and that his senior brother is moved to see him grown up and contributing to the school. He asks, confused, what gold coins? And where would he get gold coins? Never mind. I wave it off and tell him, Omana is his from now on. I will check the results, and if he teaches well, there is a precious sword in it for him. Aside from Gang Joha, whose aptitude and destiny are the strongest in the sect, Omana is the likeliest of this group to grow into real fighting power, simple as he is. Strength decides things in the martial world, and the Clear Sky Sect will have some. Gang Joha snorts and tells me to wait and see. Omana giggles at nothing, having understood none of it. Lee Sepeng and Lee Sajium start clamoring for their 3rd senior brother to teach them too, and Gang Joha cannot be bothered to look at them. Early morning, I bring all 6 up to the mountain gate and sit them down cross-legged, because I am not taking this crowd near the cliff edge. 7 of us in a row is an impressive sight, and I sit in the middle and begin explaining the supreme clarity primordial scripture in the plainest words I have. Gang Joha starts out not caring. He runs through the method once. His whole expression changes, and after that he does not make another sound. Teaching Omana and Lee Sepeng and Lee Sajium is another matter. Omana is not quick, and the other 2 are too young to follow half of what I am saying. It takes me the entire day to get those 3 to reliably breathe in a way that draws chi. By evening, Jang Okchun and Lee Dongwol have gone to cook, and I am sitting under the old tree with Master Im Simpeng's 3 secret manuals open across my knees. Gang Joha comes and stands in front of me with his eyes burning, and announces he has cultivated internal chi. I look up and tell him is not funny. It took me 7 days. He has had half of one. He does not argue. He lifts his right hand, points at the sky above the nearest roof, and a stream of origin chi bursts off his fingertip, crosses the courtyard and cuts a branch off clean. My eyes go wide. Lee Sapeng, sitting a little way off with a roasted sweet potato halfway to his mouth, goes wider. Gang Joha never once looked in the direction he was pointing. Not before, not during, not after. When he sees my face, he lifts his chin and lets an insufferable expression settle onto it. I tell him, with complete sincerity, that I did not realize my 3rd junior brother was a top-tier legendary pull. He asks what a legendary pull is, and complains that his senior brother is always producing words that do not exist. I put the manual down, stand up with both hands on his shoulders, and look him straight in the face. With a genius like him standing here, I tell him his senior brother has real confidence in the future of the Clear Sky Sect. It is good to have him. His face goes red to the ears. He is 14, and I have never once praised him seriously in his life. He turns his head away, curls his lip, and mutters that of course he has confidence in himself. I pull him down to sit with me, and we go through the first layer of the scripture together, comparing what each of us felt and when. He holds nothing back and answers everything carefully. And by the end, I have gained more from the conversation than he has. Excellent is the right word for his cultivation aptitude, and outstanding is not strong enough for his comprehension. 10 days on, Lee Dongwol becomes the 3rd person in this sect to condense origin chi, which does a great deal for my pride. It was never that my aptitude is poor, it is that Gang Joha's is monstrous. 15 days in, Jang Okchun finally refines his first thread. He does not get the chance to tell me, because the Tao lineage tells me first. More than half of my Tao lineage disciples have stepped into the nourishing origin realm, first layer, so the Clear Sky Sect can now be considered to have truly stepped onto the path of immortality. I have obtained one chance at fortune. The fortune comes with a description, that it will search within a certain range for a fortune suited to the development of my Tao lineage. I raise an eyebrow at that. Fortune is a word that sounds like a gift the instant you hear it, which is exactly why I do not trust it. Developing this place into a true cultivation school will demand resources on a scale I cannot picture. So whatever the Tao lineage digs up will be worth fighting over. There are 7 of us, all children, none past the first layer of anything. Fortune should not mean annihilation. If it costs me one junior brother or junior sister hurt, I will not be able to carry it, and we are deep in the mountains where finding a physician is close to impossible. So I decide to wait. I will hold the fortune until every disciple has stepped into the nourishing origin realm first layer, and then open it. There is no countdown, and the panel is clear that different moments produce different fortunes suited to us. I stop turning it over, pick up the wooden sword I carved myself, and go back to practice. The sword form is one of Master Im Simpung's 3 manuals, the 9 Extremes Divine Sword. The name promises more than the contents deliver, because it does not belong to the world of cultivation. It is an excellent set of forms, effective once mastered, provided your reactions are fast enough that an opponent cannot break the move on the opening beat. It is traditional forms against combat sport, and I watched enough of that argument in my last life to know which way it goes. What matters is that the 9 Extremes Divine Sword can mobilize internal chi. I have been wondering all week whether I can feed it origin chi instead. With the destiny of an innate sword fanatic in my file, I master the entire form on my first pass, and every repetition after that makes it better. 2 days in, the moves come off my wrist sharp and fast enough that Lee Sepeng and Lee Sejium stand at the edge of the yard with their mouths open. Gang Joha leaves the forest, sees it, and something moves across his face. He turns around and goes back into the trees without a word. I find out later what those 2 days did to him. He had always been certain he was a genius who only lacked an opportunity, and then he watched me own a sword form on the first attempt, knowing I have never practiced the sword. He mastered it in one go himself, but only on a foundation his family laid before he could remember. So he does the arithmetic and comes out with a number he hates, that my talent for the Tao of the sword is higher than his. I have no idea any of this is happening. All I know is his loyalty went up 2 points yesterday. The panel turns out to be more intelligent than I gave it credit for, and it answers direct questions. Loyalty is capped at 100, and Gang Joha sits at 98, which the panel describes as bordering on die-hard. Jang Okchin comes to find me, glowing, to report what he has accomplished this month. I am pleased enough that I declare a celebration dinner for that evening, and he is deeply moved that his senior brother values him so highly. Then he gets to the kitchen and starts cutting the meat, and something about the arrangement bothers him. If the dinner is a celebration for him, why is he the one cooking it? Summer thins out, and autumn comes in. A long, slow drizzle settles over the Taegon mountain range, and the peaks all around us disappear into mist. 3 months since Master Im Simpung walked down that path. Every one of my junior brothers and junior sisters except Omana has condensed origin chi, and I am quietly satisfied. Near noon, I am stretched out on a long chair in the courtyard, hands behind my head, watching the rain come down. There is a canopy over me and a plate of fruit at my elbow. Life is not bad. Since I led them onto the path of origin chi, my standing has climbed somewhere new, and whatever I say goes. Even Gang Joha resists only with his mouth, and his body has become extremely honest. Lee Sepeng comes charging into the courtyard in a straw raincoat several sizes too big, thin and small inside it, the hem dragging a line of mud behind him. He tells me somebody at the mountain gate claims to be an old friend of Master, and that he followed my standing instruction and said he knew nothing about where Master went. The man now wants to come in and stay the night, an old friend of Master. I frown and get up slowly, telling him I will go and look, and to stop running around on a wet day because falling off this mountain would be a stupid way to die. I take the oil paper umbrella from beside the chair and go out through the courtyard gate. Behind me, Lee Sepeng pulls a face at my back. The moment I am around the corner, he puts his muddy little hand straight into my fruit. The path out of the courtyard winds a few dozen paces to the mountain gate, which sits on the mountainside with the whole range opening up in front of it. I stop there every day of my life. From a distance, I can see a man in a straw raincoat standing with his back to me, and his build is not the build of somebody you take lightly. I have stepped into the nourishing origin realm, and I still keep my guard up, because I do not know my odds against a real martial world expert at the first layer. I call Master Im Simpung's martial arts amateurish, but going by the stories he brought home, the martial artists out there are formidable. Scaling walls, going over rooftops, putting down tigers and bears. Add internal chi to that, and you get something close to the novels I stayed up reading in my last life. For all I know, Master Im Simpung was very strong and never bothered showing his disciples. A man without real skill does not walk the roads alone for decades and come back carrying rescued orphans. I have not been off this mountain in 16 years, but I have the memories from before it. I was an infant, and the world was on fire. I remember Master Im Simpung holding me against his chest while he fought someone, my view covered, nothing but hooves and men screaming all around us. That was a battlefield, and nobody has ever told me whose. The man hears my footsteps, turns, and finds a youth in plain cloth walking toward him under an oil paper umbrella, and he smiles before I can open my mouth. He asks straight out whether I am Lee Chung-chu or Jang Okchin. My guard drops most of the way at that. A man who knows both our names by heart was close enough to Master that Master talked about us. I stopped 7 paces off, raised my hands in salute, and asked how I should address him and what his relationship to my master is. He is unkempt and dressed like a wanderer, a bundle on his back and a long flute at his waist. And when he laughs, it comes out so broadly that you want to trust him. He tells me his name is Gang Guaqian, that he and my master have been life and death brothers for 16 years, and that he held me himself when I was small. I do remember the name. 16 years ago, when master fled carrying me, he ran into Gang Guaqian on the road, and Gang Guaqian escorted us all the way to the foot of this mountain. So I light up and call him Senior Martial Uncle Gang, and tell him I have often heard master mention him. He asks, amused, whether my master still admits to calling him Big Brother in private. I tell him it goes without saying that master brings him up constantly. Of the few men in the martial world, master admires he is one, held up as a goal in more ways than one. Every word of that is invented. Master Im Simpeng never mentioned this man once in my hearing. Gang Guaqian laughs from the chest and looks at me with increasing approval, and whatever resentment he arrived carrying toward master goes out of him. We trade pleasantries a while before I bring him into the courtyard. Li Sepeng sees us coming, grabs 2 more pieces of fruit, and bolts for his room. Used to my 6th junior brother, I pretend to see nothing, seat our guest under the old tree, and pour him water. He drinks and looks around while he does it. The Clear Sky Sect is as run down as it has always been, and it is obvious Im Simpeng never did a thing to develop it. He sets the bowl down and comes to the point. He met my master in Goju Prefecture a month ago and already knows the situation. That master would seek immortality and asked him to take care of us. So the offer is this: come back with him to the White Emperor Manor, one of the 7 great sects of the Goju martial world. A name that carries weight, and better than a mountain. The White Emperor Manor. Master did mention one. It is one of the very few martial world sects with a line into the imperial court, and the manor head's brother holds high office. Joining would be good for all 7 of us. It would also be the end of me. The Dao lineage is already active, and I have to hold the sect leader's seat to keep drawing destinies and legacies. At the White Emperor Manor, I would be somebody's errand boy, less comfort and no future. I let some hesitation show, then tell him I am grateful for his kindness. My junior brothers and junior sisters and I have no wish to be pulled into the grudges of the martial world. Life up here is austere and stable, and we will not be coming down. He looks at me with real surprise. Master Im Simpeng apparently told him his eldest disciple had wanted to roam the world with a sword since he was small. He asked Gang Guaqian to give me my freedom once I was grown. Something like pity comes into the man's face. He is looking at a boy who just traded his own life's ambition for 6 children. He tells me earnestly that if it is the little ones I am worried about, there is no need. The White Emperor Manor will take good care of them, and I can go wherever I like afterward. I open my mouth to answer, and then I hear it. A scuffle of movement in the room next door. 6 people pressed silently against a door. So I change what I would say. I tell him I would rather hold my own destiny in my own hands, and that I am more at ease taking care of my junior brothers and junior sisters myself. I say it softly, like a man who does not want to be overheard. I am certain every one of them hears it. Gang Guaqian thinks about the infighting inside his own manor, and decides my choice may not be a bad one. He takes the bundle off his back and opens it on the table. Clothes, secret manuals, hidden weapons, and a scatter of odd items I cannot name. He picks out one manual and tells me that since my master entrusted us to him, he cannot do nothing. This one took him considerable effort to find, and I should practice it quietly and not spread it around. I do not look at the manual. I am looking at a small knife in the bundle, a blade shaped like a willow leaf and furred over with rust, the way something looks after 1,000 years in the ground, because I can feel heaven and earth spiritual chi coming off it. I tell him I do not need a secret manual. If it is truly powerful, it will bring disaster down on me, and if he feels burdened, he could gift me that small knife instead. I point at it while I say it. Gang Guaqian frowns, and it is not about the knife. He had assumed telling me not to spread it would be sufficient, but any martial art that gets cultivated eventually gets seen, and there is no such thing as hiding one forever. He is quietly ashamed. A 16-year-old on a mountain just thought a problem through further than he did. No wonder Im Simpeng always went down the mountain alone, he thinks. With this child guarding the sect, a man can sleep. He picks up the small knife and puts it in my hand, telling me we are all men of the martial world, so he will not be precious about it. If I ever run into trouble, I am to come to the White Emperor Manor and find him. Through fire, through water, smashed to pieces, this senior martial uncle will come. I take it with both hands and thank him, wearing an expression of deep gratitude that he finds extremely gratifying. I have never been more sincere about anything and never less about the reason. I tuck the knife into my robe and call the others out to meet him, and with everyone in the yard, the place turns loud. They are all intimidated by how big he is and hold back at first. The moment he starts talking about the martial world, their restraint evaporates and they climb over each other with questions. Half an hour later, the rain stops. Gang Jo-ha leaves the woods. Since he began cultivating, he prefers to do it alone, and since I can see his level and loyalty on a panel whenever I like, I let him have it. Geniuses always have something they are not saying. Gang Guokjian takes one look at him and is astonished. He circles the boy, pronounces him a martial arts genius of the kind that shows up once in 100 years, and presses him hard to come to the White Emperor Manor. Gang Jo-ha is not moved in the slightest, and what he says next carries enough open skepticism about the White Emperor Manor to make our guest furious. I watch it happen. My third junior brother does not take this man seriously and is not remotely afraid of a fight breaking out, because cultivation has done something to his sense of proportion. He is still only at the first layer, and his origin chi is the strongest in this sect, and I can feel it from where I stand. Which leaves me with a question I cannot answer yet. How wide is the gap, really, between the nourishing origin realm and a martial world expert? Our guest does not surface until noon the next day. He eats and drinks his fill, says his farewells, and on the way out still leaves a secret manual behind, pressing it into Omana's hands of all people. He tells us that if we ever come down the mountain, we should come see him at the White Emperor Manor while he is not yet old. Then he laughs, waves over his shoulder without turning, and goes. And it is dashing. I watch until the woods take him. Behind me, the others immediately start arguing about him and about the White Emperor Manor. I turn back into the courtyard and Gang Jo-ha falls in beside me. Once we are far enough from the rest, he leans in and asks whether the man gave me a treasure with spiritual chi in it. He can feel it through my robe. Faint, and he knows how rare faint is. I tell him yes, to wait while I study it, and that I will get him one of his own eventually. Then I tell him the part that matters, that my cultivation speed is not what his is, so I have to keep something in reserve. If there is ever a day he is not standing next to me, his senior brother needs a way to stay alive. His heart comes up off the floor at that, and the corners of his mouth go with it. He tells me that of course he will be around, and I can rest assured because with him here, nobody can threaten the Clear Sky Sect. He was born conceited. Cultivating the Anhuan scripture has done nothing to improve it. Back in the courtyard, I go to my room alone, and Gang Jo-ha does what he always does, and disappears into the back mountain to train. Door shut, I sit on the bed and take the knife out and start working on it properly. A weapon carrying spiritual chi. Could this actually be a magical artifact? The Supreme Clarity Primordial Scripture is not only a method for gathering chi, it carries the basics of alchemy, artifact refinement, formations, and talismans, all sketched in at the foundation level. And I go through the procedures the way it lays them out. The simplest test is to push origin chi into the artifact and see whether it carries a master binding restriction. My whole body convulses. My right hand opens on its own, and the knife hits the floor. There is a restriction on it. I sit there looking at my hand shaking in my lap with the specific numb buzz of having grabbed something live. So it really is a magical artifact. My cultivation is not enough yet. I will try again after I break through to the nourishing origin realm, second layer, because that one attempt burned through most of the origin chi I own, and I cannot afford another. I pick the knife off the floor carefully, then spend an embarrassing amount of time deciding where to put it. I bury it in the soil under my bed, which just barely smothers the spiritual chi coming off it. I go back out extremely pleased with myself. Next comes Omana, into the nourishing origin realm, first layer, and then I open the fortune. And there is a second thing I am hoping for. If every member of this sect steps onto the path of cultivation, does the Dao lineage pay me for it? Gang Guokjian turns out to be a small interlude and nothing more. I put the others on a rotation to teach Omana. His mind works slowly, but slow is not the same as closed. Guided through it over and over, he builds the motion into his body until gathering chi is something his hands remember without his help. Before winter arrives, he steps into the nourishing origin realm, first layer. The panel tells me this is the first time all of my disciples have reached the first layer, which constitutes a milestone for the Clear Sky Sect. I have obtained a legacy reward opportunity. I am sitting on the mountaintop gathering chi when it lands, and I can read it perfectly well with my eyes shut. I am so pleased I have to check myself. I shuffle backward a good 10 feet, confirm I am no longer within falling distance of the cliff edge, and open the reward. The panel offers me a spell called the Swift Wind Technique and asks whether I accept the legacy. Memory pours into me and my eyes fall closed on their own. The wind up here is bitter, the range has gone under thick fog, and snow comes down and settles on my shoulders while I sit there unable to move or care. When I open my eyes, there is nothing in me but delight. The Swift Wind Technique deserves to be called a spell. It wraps spiritual wind around the body, allows low gliding, and sharpens the reaction speed of the physical body on top of that. In mountains and forests, there is not much more useful. My very first thought is how much easier this makes getting down the mountain. I stand up ready to practice it, and then think better of it. You do not test a gliding technique on a peak. A giant of the immortal realm is not dying on a rock in Goju Prefecture because he was impatient. The sun goes down, the moon comes up, and the snow gets heavier. That night, the Clear Sky Sect throws a party because Mana has cultivated origin chi. Jang Ok-chun and Lee Dong-wol kill a chicken for it, and even dig out the old wine master hid 20 years ago. Mana is 13 and already built like a door. He sits between Lee Sepeng and Lee Sajium, looking like a grown man boarding with 2 children, his shoulders nearly as wide as the pair of them together. Gang Joha settles in beside me and looks down the table at him. With an insufferable smile, he tells me that our 5th junior brother may be a bit stupid, but his martial talent is unquestionably the strongest among us. Give him 10 years, he says, then corrects himself to 5, and says he will make Omena a first-rate master of the martial world. I pour the wine and ask him what about himself then, and whether he considers himself a first-rate master. I should have kept my mouth shut. He swells and tells me not to say that, because he might actually be one already. Then he adds something rare enough that I nearly dropped the jar. That this internal skill of mine is very strong, and out in the martial world would be called a divine technique outright. It is not a martial arts divine technique, it is a cultivation technique. He is the only person at this table who has come close to guessing how far above his head it sits. I keep that to myself. So far, every one of them believes what they have been building in their bodies is internal chi. The mood at that table is very good, and everyone is busy imagining the future. Jang Ok-chun uses the wine as cover to raise something he has clearly been holding. He tells me we need to recruit disciples ahead of schedule, because the junior brothers and junior sisters all need time to train and he cannot carry the sect's chores alone anymore. He wants to become a master himself, and he is not stupid about it. He understands that in the Clear Sky Sect that is coming, seniority alone will not hold anyone's respect, and a hard fist is the foundation of everything. I have been very satisfied with him these last months, and I have also noticed how tired he is. So I tell him we start with 7, and the whole thing is his. He goes down to the village and recruits, men and women both welcome. We provide food and housing and charge nothing, and he is to say plainly that it is to repay the village. And when a disciple has finished 10 years of training and wants to go home, we do not stop them. He is delighted right up until that last sentence, and then his face pinches. He asks whether letting them walk down the mountain does not make all our work raising them a waste. I wave it off. That is not the arithmetic. They will have worked for us for 10 years by then, and if the Clear Sky Sect cannot keep the people it raises, that means we have not done enough to deserve them. He turns it over, decides it makes sense, and something like admiration arrives on his face. He is thinking that his senior brother works on a scale he does not, and no wonder Master picked him. He is the one who is not good enough, too busy counting what things cost. He and I talk about the sect's development while the rest argue about training in the martial world. And the noise fills the whole courtyard. There is snow on the roof, and the life chi rising off this place is not going out tonight. When the party breaks up, I leave the others to clear the table and go back to my room. Gang Joha does no work whatsoever, and apart from me, nobody in this sect has ever dared say a word to him about it. I set the brazier full of charcoal down at the foot of the bed, climb up, call the Dao lineage panel, and open the fortune. Claim. Open. Detecting. The panel reports it has captured a fortune. It has discovered an underground spirit lake, and it asks whether I accept its guidance. An underground spirit lake. My eyebrows go up and stay there. I have struck something, and I do not think it is small. This may well be the foundation the Clear Sky Sect rises on. Morning comes and I am out before the sun clears the ridge, waking the junior brothers and junior sisters to practice. A night of snow has buried the courtyard, and Jang Ok-chun and Lee Dong-wol are already out with shovels. So I tell them to cultivate first, because the snow will keep an hour. We climb onto the eaves and meditate together, drawing in the purple chi until thin wisps of steam rise off our heads. I crack one eye open and am quietly pleased. They are young, but young means obedient, and obedient means easy to teach, which is worth more to me than raw talent. This is the foundation of the whole enterprise, and it is sitting on a roof with frost in its hair. An hour later they drop off the eaves and scatter to their chores, and I call Jang Okchin over and tell him he is coming with me. His eyebrow lifts when he sees me bring the heavenly rainbow sword, but he raises no objection. We walk into the forest talking about the small business of the sect, nothing that matters. The Taegon mountain range is steep enough that even the two of us watch our footing, and under the snow the ground has a habit of giving way. 10 miles out he finally asks where we are going. I answer without turning around. I tell him an immortal came to me in a dream last night, and named this stretch of the range as a place with treasures hidden in it. The dream was vivid enough to bring me looking. The fortune legacy gave me the route the way a memory gives you a road. An illusion I truly walked, every turn still in my head. The whole thing is magical, and I do not intend to explain it. Behind me, Jang Okchin nearly comes apart, and I know what he wants to ask, which is whether I think he is a fool. He does not dare defy me, so he swallows it and keeps humoring his senior brother. The snow has covered the range so completely that walking feels like walking in place, though we are both in the nourishing origin realm, and neither of us tires. Another dozen miles, and I stop. There is no path ahead. Only a cliff face with snow banked on both sides, and a gap too narrow to be anything. Jang Okchun breathes into his palms and says this place does not look like it holds treasure. The immortal seems unreliable, he says, and we should give it up. I do not answer, and start feeling along the rock with both hands. Then I find what I want, and hammer one spot, and on the third strike, the cliff breaks open. Jang Okchun goes still, then crowds in beside me. A dozen seconds more, and I accept the wall will not give further. Then I go quiet, because the dream only guided me this far, and the entrance in it was much larger. What I have opened is barely wide enough for a dog. Jang Okchun bends and looks in, and it is pitch black, but hot air comes rolling out over both of us. I tell him we are going, and I crawl in before he can talk me out of it, and after a moment of gritted teeth he follows. The tunnel slants downward and stays black the whole way. The hot air is pleasant against the cold on our faces, and the further we go, the wider it opens, which helps the feeling of being wedged inside stone. After 50 feet, we reach the end. He climbs out behind me, lands easily because the drop is not high, then looks up with his mouth open on its own. Ahead of us is an enormous underground space. Set into the walls are countless blue-silver ores of every size, edges sharp as broken glass, and below them lies a lake nearly 100 feet across, blue and shimmering with silver light. It is beautiful in a way that belongs to no place I have stood in. Jang Okchun says he feels refreshed, his whole body awake. He asks whether this place is full of the heaven and earth spiritual chi we breathe every morning, and whether cultivating here would make our internal chi grow faster. He cannot keep the excitement out of his voice. I tell him is exactly right, that this is an excellent place for cultivation, and that heaven is evidently blessing the Clear Sky Sect. I say it with perfect composure. I have been fantasizing about this moment since I activated the fortune, so my face was ready long before my feet were. We wandered the edge of the water, looking and talking. He warns me about poisonous insects or beasts denned up in here, then asks whether an immortal really came to me in a dream, or whether Master told me before he left. He calls it a pity the place sits half a day's round trip away, and asks whether 10 years here would make us experts who shake the martial world. I answer all of it casually, and about half of it honestly, and he does not mind. He is steady every other day of his life, but he is still 15, and in front of me the steadiness slips off. We circle the space a few times, and only after confirming there is one entrance and nothing living down here do we relax. I ask him, eyes still on the spirit lake, how we should arrange for the junior brothers and junior sisters to cultivate. He thinks it over properly. Everyone coming together will not work, he says, because somebody has to guard the sect and he still has disciples to recruit. And nobody outside the 7 of us can ever know this place exists. His proposal is that we come in pairs, cultivate a day, and rotate in turn. I nod and tell him it is a good proposal, and that the fact he thought about the risks satisfies me a great deal. He goes shy and says in Master's old stories plenty of people in schools met disaster over a divine technique or a treasure, holding something valuable without the strength to keep it. I tell him is exactly the shape of our problem. The Clear Sky Sect is only us. We are all still too young, and we cannot afford to lose even one person. Something changes in his face when I say. I watch him refuse it. Jang Okchun was abandoned at 6 and grew up an orphan, unsure of his footing his whole life. He decided long ago that we were his family, which is why he does every thankless job on this mountain without complaint. I pick up one of the crystal stones at the lakeside and can feel how thick the spiritual chi is inside it. My first instinct is to pocket one. Then I remember that a novice could sense the spiritual chi off that little knife of mine, and the spirit stone carried down the mountain would be an invitation to anyone with a trained nose. So I put it back and tell Jang Ok-chun plainly that from this day, nobody takes a spirit stone out of here. We do not linger. We fix the location in our heads and start back to arrange the personnel. After I crawl out, I drag the surrounding weeds over the hole and bank snow across the weeds, and only then can I walk away comfortably. I tell him never to mention this outside because if some expert happens past and hears it carrying on the air, that is the end of us. He nods because he understands what the underground spirit lake is worth. On the way back, he says he plans to recruit once the snow melts, since it has been coming heavier, and he does not want an accident bringing village children up. I have no objection. I am not in a hurry to expand, and I would rather have the foundation strong before we deal with anyone. The road back is as rough as the road out, and our footprints have long since filled in. Halfway home, I stop walking. Jang Ok-chun asks what is wrong, and I tell him quietly to listen. He holds his breath and focuses, and then he hears it too. A thin sound out of the forest beside us. Somebody asking to be saved. He is at the first layer now, so his gaze cuts straight through the crisscross trunks. He finds half a human face behind a big tree, its owner propped against a rock, and asks whether we should get involved. I do not need him to point, because I found the man before he did. I hesitate, then tell him we will take a look, and that he should be careful and not let the man get an ambush off. The bushes come apart under our hands, and we walk toward him. Yang Jul-jung's vision has gone soft at the edges by the time he sees two young figures coming through the trees, and the relief in him is enormous. He watched us go down the mountain earlier and could not get a call out in time, so he has spent the whole day waiting for us to come back. He was nearly finished waiting. He puts everything he has left into the shout, and it still comes out as a thread. We come in carefully, stop at a safe distance, and look him over. He is covered in snow, his robes filthy, the stubble on his jaw matted with blood, the headscarf about to slide off, and he looks to be in his 30s. There is a very serious wound in his abdomen and the blood around it has frozen. Jang Ok-chun asks who he is and why he is out here. The man says only that he wants water, and his right hand tries to lift and cannot manage the motion. Jang Ok-chun looks to me and I nod, and he pulls the flask out of his robe and tosses it over. The dying man sits straight up, snatches it out of the air, wrenches it open and pours it down his throat. Jang Ok-chun backs off a step without deciding to. I can feel something moving inside this man, some energy holding his body at a steady temperature. And that is how he has lasted out here. An expert of the martial world who has cultivated internal chi. He drains the water in one pull and lies back, and his manner loosens several notches. Then he grins at us, thanks the young brothers for saving him, and says his name is Yang Jul-jung. We keep staring without saying anything. He seems thrown by that and asks whether we really have not heard the name. He is the dragon-subduing hero, he tells us, ranked in the top 10 of the heavenly ranking of the Goju Prefecture martial world. Jang Ok-chun and I look at each other, because we have in fact heard of him. It came from Gang Guokchian, who was in a rush to get off this mountain because he wanted to watch the duel between the dragon-subduing hero and the sea-crossing sword saint. He mentioned it on his way out and never described the man. And there are so many famous figures in the martial world that none of us held on to it. Now the dragon-subduing hero is bleeding into the snow at the foot of the Clear Sky Sect. I ask him carefully why he has come here. He smiles without much humor and says it should be obvious that he came to hide from an enemy and we need not worry because the enemy left long ago. He relied on his internal martial arts to hold his breath 7 days and never once saw the man. 7 days of held breath. Jang Ok-chun and I are impressed, and neither of us believes a word of it yet. He keeps going. We go up and down this mountain too often to be villagers, he says, so we must be disciples of the Clear Sky Sect. He has met our master Im Simpung a few times, and rather likes his temper. He wants us to take him back, and once healed he will teach us to cultivate. He mentions a set of palm techniques where one strike lands like a mountain toppling into the sea, enough to shake the whole martial world. At Im Simpung's name we both come down a notch because Master was not bragging all those years. I do not agree to anything yet, and while I am weighing it he adds the rest of his pitch. After an injury like this he wants out of the martial world entirely, and the Clear Sky Sect suits him because it sits far from the secular world. He offers to do the chores if we need someone, and says a meal and a straw mat is his whole asking price. Jang Ok-chun is moved and looks over at me. A plan finishes assembling itself in my head. I tell Yang Juljong that joining the Clear Sky Sect has procedures, and that he must kneel now toward the sect and swear 3 oaths. First, that he will never harm a fellow disciple. Second, that he will never damage the interests of the Clear Sky Sect. Third, that for the development of the Clear Sky Sect, he is willing to dedicate everything. Jang Ok-chun's eyes flick sideways, and I can read the question on him, which is when on earth these rules were established. He keeps his face flat and says nothing, which is why I like him. Yang Juljung finds the whole thing amusing. None of the 3 oaths cross any principle he holds, so he drags himself upright, kneels where I point, raises one hand and recites them back. I pull up the Tao lineage panel immediately. The disciple count has gone up by 1, and his portrait is waiting when I click through. The panel gives me his name and tells me he is male and 35 years old. His loyalty to the sect leader sits at 50, and his loyalty to the school at 50 as well, out of a maximum of 100. His cultivation aptitude and comprehension ability both read relatively good. Then it lists 2 destiny entries, heroic spirit and desperate strong expert. Heroic spirit tells me he will sacrifice himself for others, takes righteousness as his life principle, and repays a single drop of kindness with a fountain. Desperate strong expert tells me that cornered with no way out, he can erupt with greater strength than he otherwise has. The words heroic spirit settle me completely. The other one I find interesting. I wonder whether the reason this man escaped at all is that he fought his way out of a situation he was supposed to die in. I do not chase it further. I close the panel and tell Jang Ok-chun to help him up, so we can go. And he hesitates half a second and obeys. Hauled to his feet, Yang Juljong grins and asks what the 2 little brothers are called. I tell him my name is Lee Chung-chu, and I am the current sect leader, and that this is Jang Ok-chun, my second junior brother. 2 words on a panel have changed how I see this man's face. His reputation as a hero is apparently not built out of nothing, and the only pity is that the panel will not tell me how strong he is. He asks in surprise what happened to Im Simpung, if I am the sect leader. Jang Ok-chun answers before I can, telling him our master went off to seek immortality and does not want us anymore. And the resentment in his voice is not hidden. From the day Im Simpung carried him back, it was me who raised him, and he barely ever got to speak to the man. Yang Juljong makes a small wondering sound at the phrase seeking immortality, and lets it go. The 3 of us talk about nothing all the way home, and it takes a full hour. Lee Dongwall, Lee Sejium, and Lee Sapung crowd around the moment we come through the gate, fascinated that we came back with an extra person. I have them clear out Master's old room for him. There was never anything of value in Im Simpung's room, which I confirmed long ago, and it is barer than my own. Yang Juljong is not shy with us either. Before he will move in, he asks Jang Ok-chun for 2 jugs of the old wine, and adds that a chicken would improve matters considerably. Jang Ok-chun does not spoil him and hands over 1 jug. Then he spends the next half day shut in there circulating his chi to close his wounds. Seeing that he can heal himself takes an enormous weight off me, because not one of us knows the first thing about saving a life. From now on, when a junior brother or junior sister gets hurt, we have somewhere to put them. The man is turning out to be a considerable asset, and he has been here half a day. Evening comes, and Gang Joha walks Mana out of the forest, with his robes torn and a cut across his face. I frown and ask what happened. Gang Joha says, unbothered, that you cannot practice martial arts without getting hurt, and that these are surface wounds and mean nothing. Mana just grins at me like an idiot. I tell him if it hurts too much, he should say so, and I will have his 3rd senior brother go easier. He smiles with that plain honesty of his and says it does not hurt. He wants to protect 1st senior brother and the junior brothers, and junior sisters, he says, and he will get stronger. That lands somewhere under my ribs and stays there. He is 13, whatever he looks like from a distance. I decide on the spot that Gang Joha's chicken leg will owe mana tonight. Then I reconsider, because 3rd junior brother means well too in his own brutal way, so I will give up my own instead. I have everyone sit at the long table to go over the afternoon's training. Gang Joha still has not told us what external martial arts he is putting Omana through, saying he wants it to be a surprise. I trust him enough that I have never peeked through the panel. Jang Ok-chun finishes cooking and Yang Juljong follows the smell out of his room. Gang Joha's face goes cold, and he asks the man who he is. Jang Ok-chun jumps in to make introductions fast, because Gang Joha is entirely capable of starting something, and this is a boy who once talked back to Gang Guaqian to his face. Under that stare, Yang Juljong narrows his own eyes. The child in front of him is not very old and is making the hair stand up on his arms. I stay on my stool and watch without moving, delighted with my third junior brother. He is not only fierce at home, he is fierce at strangers, and a school that wants to stand up in this world needs people who frighten other people. Jang Ok-chun is steady but soft, and pairing the two of them covers everything. Once the introduction is done, Gang Jo-ha tells Yang Jo-jung that whatever fame he holds in the martial world means nothing here. If he tries anything at the Clear Sky Sect, he will be made to regret it. Then he sits down. Yang Jo-jung is not offended and looks at the boy with open appreciation. He had been worrying about a sect run by a teenager, wondering how the Clear Sky Sect could be nothing but children, and he has evidently just revised that. It seems the Clear Sky Sect has a few things tucked away after all. He picks up chopsticks without waiting to be invited, and eats while he studies the rest of my disciples. Oh, Mana draws far too much of his attention, because anyone with eyes can see the boy is a martial arts prodigy. I catch where his gaze keeps going and give him his assignment. Once his injuries heal, besides helping Jang Ok-chun with the work, he is to teach the disciples martial arts, specifically that palm set he was so proud of. He asks whether Mana can train with him too, and Gang Jo-ha refuses on the boy's behalf before I can open my mouth, saying there is no need, because Mana trains with him. Yang Jo-jung smiles at him and calls the palm set an ultimate art famous throughout the world. Gang Jo-ha does not give an inch, and proposes that once the injuries heal, the man spar with Mana and use that world-famous ultimate art while he does it. Even a patient man would take that badly. Yang Jo-jung smiles coldly and says he would like to see how high this boy's skills run, to make a child surpass 20 years of hard cultivation. Lee Dong-wol looks at me in alarm and finds me wearing the expression of a man at a very good opera, so she swallows what she would say. Lee Sapung and Lee Sajiam are too young to read a room and start cheering. The mood at this table has never been better, and two men just agreed to a duel over a chicken dinner. That night, the rest of them go back to their rooms nervous, keeping half an ear open for Yang Jo-jung. I am not worried, and since I do not need sleep anymore, I cultivate straight through until morning. At first light, I take Gang Jo-ha down the mountain, which makes Jang Ok-chun deeply anxious, because watching Yang Jo-jung alone strikes him as more pressure than one person should carry. I do not take his advice and tell him to rest easy. Gang Jo-ha loses his composure entirely at the underground spirit lake, and we cultivate half a day before I give him instructions and physically drag him back. Tomorrow he takes Lee Dong-wol. Half a month goes by like that, and all 7 of us have been down to the spirit lake by then, reminding each other every trip not to breathe a word of it. Yang Jo-jung never works out where we go and assumes we are hunting. Then comes the day that lands on me like a dropped beam, when Gang Jo-ha becomes the first of us to step into the nourishing origin realm, second layer. I expected it, and having it arrive is still uncomfortable, because the plain fact is my aptitude is worse than his. To get it out of my system, I grab him in a hug and ruin his hair, and he is too busy being happy to notice what his senior brother is really doing. That night I sit on my bed still turning the breakthrough over. There is a saying about how a man dreads seeing his brother struggle, and dreads just as much seeing his brother pass him. I laugh at myself for it. My head is already back on straight, and I am genuinely glad for him. Then a voice comes through my window, loud and carrying under the night sky. It calls Yang Jo-jung out by name and asks whether the dragon-subduing hero intends to hide behind a pack of children. It tells him to come out and accept his death, because otherwise the speaker will slaughter the entire Clear Sky Sect. There is an enemy at the gate. I am up and moving with the heavenly rainbow sword before the last word finishes ringing. Gang Jo-ha has beaten me into the courtyard and stands there with a wooden sword, looking off into the distance. I follow his eyes to the mountain gate, where a figure stands with the bright moon behind him, white robes snapping, a bamboo hat low over his face, a blade in both hands. The posture alone tells me everything I need to know. Jang Ok-chun and Mana come out next. Lee Sapung is up on his windowsill, and Lee Dong-wol and Lee Sajiam are at their own windows, neither pretending to be calm. This is the first crisis I have faced since taking the seat. I am nervous, and also not without confidence, because every member of the Clear Sky Sect has entered the Nourishing Origin realm, and every one of them can fight. Yang Jo-jung lands on the eaves behind me and stares across at the swordsman in white. He calls the man Na Yol and asks whether 1,000 miles of chasing him still is not enough, and his voice carries across the courtyard with the resentment intact. Na Yol stands on the mountain gate a few dozen yards off and lets the cold wind work at his robes, his head lowered and the hat keeping his face. He asks whether Yang Jo-jung really thinks a man who offended the Azure sect walks away unscathed, and tells him to hand over the secret manual and be allowed to die quickly. Then the blade leaves the scabbard with a sound like tearing silk, and Na Yeol leaps, sailing at Yang Jiljong like a startled swan. I narrow my eyes and watch a current of chi drive him forward from behind, which is what makes it look like flight. So this is a Lightfoot skill. Crossing the eaves, his toes touch down once, light as a dragonfly kissing water, fast enough that outside the nourishing origin realm I would have trouble following it. Good. It is not as mystical as it looks, and a man who has to borrow force to move like that is not on some unreachable level. Yang Jiljung plants himself in a horse stance as Na Yeol comes in. His right palm pushes up from his waist, turns over, and drives down, and the roar of it goes through the whole compound. Gang Joa and Jang Okchun and I watch a vast wave of internal chi break out of that palm and catch Na Yeol in midair like a tide hitting a boat. He is thrown backward, turns over once, and lands upright in the courtyard. He looks up and the bamboo hat lifts off a weathered face with terror written all over it. He demands to know how the power is possible and insists Yang Jiljung was clearly poisoned. Then he asks whether the man has already mastered that divine technique, and by the end of the question, his expression has gone from frightened to vicious. Yang Jiljung drops off the eaves and lands easy, and his mouth curls. He says he has walked the martial world too many years to be brought down by such shabby tactics. As for the divine technique, the thing is fake and there is nothing in it to master. Na Yeol snorts and comes at him with the sword. A dozen paces vanish in an instant. The blade is sharp and his movement is ghost quick, and Yang Jiljung raises a bare palm to meet it without a flicker of fear. Their two figures tangle in the middle of the courtyard, parrying and striking. Internal chi coming off both hard enough to lift the snow off the ground as mist. Jang Okchun asks me a question with his eyes, and I shake my head very slightly and tell him to hold. This is an excellent chance to see what an expert of the martial world is actually made of, and they are formidable, both of them. Their reaction speed and raw strength put them far outside anything an ordinary person could manage, and a cultivator at the nourishing origin realm, first layer, might well lose to either. I mean the children when I say Li Sapeng and Li Sajiam at their windows. If it were me down there, I could kill them both in seconds, because their moves are showy, but my origin chi comes out faster than either can close. What I am really learning tonight is how enormous the gap between internal chi and origin chi is. Yang Jiljung's internal chi is thick and grand and open, and it swirls snow across the whole courtyard, and origin chi would put a hole through it on the first strike. Even if Gang Joha had never reached the second layer, Na Yeol would be no threat to this sect. The only variable is that my people are careless and not yet decisive. Jang Okchun's face relaxes as he watches, and Gang Joha has worn the same contemptuous half-smile from the first exchange, never once looking at Na Yeol as if he mattered. 30 exchanges in, Na Yeol strikes with an open palm, his rolling internal chi turning the hand a searing red. Yang Jiljung does not dodge and brings his own palm up to meet the move. The collision goes through the eaves and the roof tiles on every side, and sets the windows creaking, and Na Yeol's hat blows clean off. He grits his teeth under the pressure with his hair loose around his face, and Yang Jiljung smiles down at him like a man holding a bird in his fist. I can see he is bluffing, because his injuries have not closed and every breath he holds that stance is costing him. He holds 3 breaths, then pushes, and Na Yeol goes back more than 10 steps before he can plant himself, then drops to one knee and spits blood onto the snow. Yang Jiljung withdraws his hand and stands there looking every inch a grandmaster of the martial world. He points at the man and tells him to get lost, and to go back and tell the Azure Sect that the next time they come there will be no mercy in it. Na Yeol looks up with the sword in one hand and wipes the blood off his mouth with the other. He sneers that being let go is very generous, and that the dragon-subduing hero is evidently not as strong as he looks on the surface. Yang Jiljung's face goes cold and he asks whether the man wants to be killed. Then his expression falls apart. He looks down at his right palm, where a patch of red rash has bloomed, and is rising into blisters as if he had pressed his hand to a stove. Na Yeol gets to his feet laughing and asks what sort of palm he thought he was catching, and says the dragon-subduing hero really ought to have remembered how famous his own palm power is. Yang Jiljung curses himself silently. He only meant to frighten Na Yeol off so he could get clear of this mountain with the rest of us, and he got careless in the middle of the fight. His left hand clamps down on the acupoints of his right arm and he starts circulating chi to drive the poison out. Na Yeol walks toward him with the sword up and opens his mouth to say something. Something cuts the air. Na Yeol's eyes go wide and his face locks. Yang Jiljung, feels a sharp force pass his cheek and sting on the way by. When he looks again, there is a bloody hole in Na Yol's forehead, and the man goes straight down like a dropped coat. Yang Joljung turns and finds Gang Joha with his hand still extended in the follow-through of a throw. Gang Joha says only that the man talked too much. Zhang Okchun has gone white, and so have Li Dongwol, and Li Sapung, and Li Sajiam inside the house. They have all seen Gang Joha's origin chi before, but not one expected he would kill a man with it. Yang Joljong looks at my third junior brother and cannot get a full sentence out. Gang Joha glances at Jang Okchun and tells his second senior brother to bury the body. Jang Okchun comes back to himself, nods hard, and starts toward the corpse on instinct. I tell him to wait and check the man for anything worth having first, and I follow him over. I am not shocked by any of this. If anything, I am satisfied, because if Na Yeol had walked back down this mountain alive, the Clear Sky Sect would have been in real danger. Yang Joljung surfaces enough to ask why the boy killed him, and whether he is not afraid of the Azure Sect coming back for it. Gang Joha answers with contempt that if we had not killed him, the Azure Sect was hardly going to leave us alone. Anyway, Yang Joljung is already a disciple of the Clear Sky Sect, so anyone troubling him is troubling us. He is 15 and he says it like a warlord. It knocks Yang Joljung sideways, and the man asks him blankly what exactly his background is. Gang Joha turns and walks back toward the house and answers over his shoulder that he is Vice Sect Master of the Clear Sky Sect. I look up for Na Yol's clothes and ask when I agreed to that, and whether he is now simply issuing himself titles. The boy really does know how to make an exit. He does not answer and disappears inside. Li Sapung comes out as he goes in, and Li Dongwol and Li Sajiam a moment later. I let out a breath nobody hears. He killed a man for the first time tonight and covered it perfectly, and going through that door his hand was shaking. I searched Na Yeol and turn up nothing but hidden weapons, dry rations, and a token, which is deeply disappointing. I put the 3 junior brothers on burial duty and get up. Yang Joljong is still working the poison out and is not entirely returned to the world. I ask what the secret manual is and tell him to hand it over as repayment for the life we saved tonight. He says helplessly that it is fake and does not work. I tell him to hand it over anyway. He tells me to wait, stops circulating his chi, pulls off one shoe and works a thin sheet out of the sole, and unfolded it is about the size of a human face. I take it off him with visible distaste and toss it to Li Dongwol to wash. She gives me a look that could curdle milk, takes a cloth out of her robe, picks the thing up wrapped in that instead of touching it, and walks off toward the well. I ask whether the man had companions. He shakes his head and says Na Yeol was chasing him alone, taking advantage of the injury he already carried from a duel with somebody else. Ambushing an injured man is the height of dishonesty. That is the answer I wanted. I tell him to get back to healing himself, wait by the well until Li Dongwol is finished, and carry the sheet inside. It is as thin as a cicada's wing and startlingly cold against my fingers, covered edge to edge in tiny characters. I have a strong suspicion about what it was cut from, and no intention of confirming it. I leave the door open so nothing happens in the courtyard without my hearing it. Sit at the table, light a candle, and go through it properly. My eyebrows climb. No wonder Yang Joljong thinks the secret manual is worthless. It is not a martial technique. It is a spell. The thing never records how to absorb chi and goes straight to how to channel it. Several of the acupoints it names are not the ones martial artists use, which from where he was standing would read as nonsense. It is not until the very end that the sheet gives up its name. The Supreme Sword Control Art. A night passes and the first light spills across the Clear Sky Sect. Water drips off the eaves of every building, which means the winter snow has started to go. I am up early for my breathing exercises, and the others are up with me, carrying on as if nothing happened in that courtyard. We meditate in front of the mountain gate, facing out at the range, the whole magnificent sprawl of it appearing and vanishing in the mist. Last night frightened them, and frightened disciples cultivate hard, while Yang Joljong has stacked new injuries on the old ones and stays in his room. An hour later I stand and send them off. Gang Joha takes Omana up the back mountain, and Jang Okchun and Li Dongwol chop wood and feed the chickens. Li Sapung and Li Sajiam, being the smallest, are only required to stay out of trouble. I knock on Yang Joljung's door, and he tells me to come in, and even those 3 words come out tired. He is not a cultivator, so he needs sleep like anyone else, and he spent the night pushing poison out of his arm. I sit down at his table and ask where he got the secret manual. He opens his eyes and tells me all of it. Half a year ago, the rumors started about Bayang Lake, that when the tide pulled back, a path opened to the lake bed. At the end of it, the story went, was a secret chamber left behind a century ago by a martial arts myth. He went to join the excitement and found the rumor was true. He went down with a crowd of martial world people, got lucky, and came up with a box with the secret manual in it. Experts from the Azure Sect spotted him on his way out, and he drove them off and assumed the matter was closed. Then they came for him after he and the Sea-Crossing Sword Saint had both walked away from their duel injured. He is still bitter about it, gutted over a manual that does not work, which by his accounting is a catastrophic trait. I asked the obvious thing, that if he thought it was fake, why not hand it to the Azure Sect and be done? He glares at the ceiling and says fake or not, he cannot give it to those people. He asks what trouble they would cause trading on the manual's reputation. The Azure Sect swindles and deceives as daily business, with high officials and nobles taken in, and the common people squeezed for it. To the Azure Sect, he says, the manual's authenticity hardly matters because what they want is the title of martial arts myth. If word got around that they had taken the divine technique and the ultimate art of a martial arts myth out of the hands of the dragon-subduing hero, their prestige would go through the roof. They might even get a foot into the imperial court, which is what they have been angling at for years. They did not believe him when he told them it was fake, and handing it over would only have gotten him killed. They would have kept killing until they were satisfied there was no second manual. I ask out of curiosity which is stronger, the Azure Sect or the White Emperor Manor. He thinks about it and says they are roughly matched, with one difference. The White Emperor Manor has ties to the imperial court the Azure Sect will not lightly provoke, so the two rarely come into contact. He adds the White Emperor Manor has largely stopped involving itself in martial world affairs, whereas the Azure Sect is ambitious and wants to be hegemon of the whole martial world. I keep him talking while the subject is open and come away with a decent picture of the martial world in Goju Prefecture. What surprises me most is the scale. The Great Li dynasty is far larger than the Korea of my previous life. Goju Prefecture alone is half the size of that country, holding more than a dozen provincial cities with martial world schools as thick as trees. He coughs, and I take that as my exit and get up. The first thing I want is the swift wind technique. Watching that fight taught me my movement is a step behind what experts out there are doing, and I do not intend to stay behind. The Supreme Sword Control art can wait, because the spell needs 9 swords to unleash properly, and I own 1. When I have more spells, I will organize them, since a man has finite energy and cannot practice everything he picks up. I will get to it eventually. It would be a crime against my own talent not to. The days stack up. Most of the snow is melted and Yang Jil-jeong is well enough to leave his room. He does not dare pester Mana anymore, and he very carefully never mentions the bet with Gang Joha again. Instead, his attention drifts to Lee Sepung and Lee Se-jeom, and he decides that as young as those two are, they are good seed. I hear him muttering that the Clear Sky Sect is a wicked place with rather too many geniuses in it. Half a month later, Jang Ok-chun cannot stand waiting and drags Mana and Lee Dongwol down the mountain to recruit. Yang Jil-jeong stays behind under my orders so he does not walk into Azure Sect disciples still hunting him, and he does not argue, having reached the same conclusion himself. That evening, the 3 of them bring 7 children up, 6 boys and 1 girl, the oldest no more than 13 and the youngest only 6. After a simple initiation ceremony, I check their panels, and every one reads extremely poor and unranked in both aptitude and comprehension ability. My master left me an extraordinary foundation, truly. Judging by Im Simpung's eye for people, his ambitions were never small, and it is a pity the desire to cultivate blinded him to everything he had built. I put the new disciples in by gender, squeezing them in with their seniors. Lee Dongwol and Lee Sepung and the rest do not mind the crowding, being rather excited that they are elders now. For the first 7 days, the new ones do nothing but learn their way around, and after that I put Jang Ok-chun and Lee Dongwol on teaching them the Hanwon scripture. Lee Dongwol will make a fine elder of transmission in time, while Lee Sepung and Lee Se-jeom remain to be seen. A month of martial arts under Yang Jil-jeong's hand has done remarkable things for Lee Sepung. He is over walls and onto rooftops now, and the new disciples make a satisfying amount of noise every time he does it. Winter finishes and the Lunar New Year comes on. The Great Li dynasty keeps it the same way, and every year when it comes around, I think about my previous life. That afternoon, I sit in the courtyard resting, worn out from a session of the swift wind technique. I watch everyone work, some sweeping, some hauling water, some patching the eaves, all of it moving in the right direction. Gang Joha and Jang Ok-chun come into the courtyard one after the other and sit down on either side of me. Gang Joha says they want to go down to the town and buy weapons, and asks what I think. The entire Clear Sky sect owns 2 swords, and Im Simpong took one with him. Gang Joha has been sitting on this a long time. What he wants is a sword, a real one, and he is not the only one since none of the others can keep training on nothing but fists and feet. Forever. I ask where he imagines we would get the money. Jang Okchun steps in and says the plan is to go into the city and perform sword techniques for rewards, because if the school will truly rise it needs money. He intends to use the trip to put the Clear Sky sect's name about, and later to earn by helping people out of disasters and difficulties. He adds that with 8 more mouths at the table, the grain is already tight. Helping people out of disasters and difficulties is how half the schools in the martial world got started, and stripped of the poetry it means hiring the sect out as muscle. It also means reputation, and reputation is what makes people want to join you. I had wanted to sit quiet a few years before we did anything like this. What he says makes sense though, and we are not proposing to cross any of the major sects, and between the 2 of them, they have strength enough to protect themselves. So I tell them to go ahead, to be careful, and not to let their own ability tempt them into looking down on anyone or picking fights. Having them travel together is most of what makes me comfortable with it. Gang Joha huffs and asks whether I think they are still children, and Jang Okchun nods seriously and promises he will keep third junior brother reined in. Gang Joha turns and stares at him with real betrayal, and Jang Okchun looks straight ahead as though he cannot see it. We talk a while longer and then Gang Joha is too impatient to sit. The nearest town is 2 days out, so a night in the mountains is unavoidable, and all I can do is put together dry rations and water and watch them walk down. I stand at the mountain gate looking at my 2 junior brothers' backs, and end up shouting after them that they had better be home before the Lunar New Year. Jang Okchun turns and waves with a huge grin, while Gang Joha does not turn around. Long after they have gone into the trees, I am still standing there. Young Joljong comes up beside me and tells me not to worry, that the gang boy is very strong and Jang Okchun is no slouch either. With those 2 loose in the world, he says, he would sooner worry about whichever martial world fool fails to recognize what he is looking at. He means it, and he genuinely believes Gang Joha fights dirty. All this time my 3rd junior brother has been going to him for sparring to pick up practical combat experience, and without Origin Chi in play the man has held him down comfortably. But the boy's rate of improvement is frightening, and by the end every move he made was aimed at killing, which young Joljong found hard to sit with. He has decided this child will be somebody, and that sparring is a large part of why I let them go. I take my eyes off the tree line and tell him there is no helping it, that it is their first time down the mountain, and I will worry regardless. Then start back inside. He calls after me asking when I intend to let him see my sword techniques. The Joha boy has been telling him my talent with a sword runs even higher than his own. I tell him to forget it, that I do not like fighting and I do not slow down. Behind me he watches me go, deciding all over again that I am a mystery. The next several days I am restless, half expecting bad news about Jang Okchun and Gang Joha, and I do not say a word about it to anyone. On the evening before the Lunar New Year they come back. Jang Okchun's voice comes up from the mountain gate, calling that they are home and somebody had better come and help, and the entire sect swarms in that direction. I get there first, and one look drops the weight off my shoulders. The 2 of them are each carrying a shoulder pole with weapons sticking out of the bundles, catching the light with that cold metal shine, and neither is missing any limbs. So this is what the shouting was about. I had assumed they were injured. I put the disciples who came running to work carrying it all in and stay exactly where I am standing, because a sect leader hauling luggage is not a thing that happens. Then I notice what is standing behind, Jang Okchun. A small beggar is following them, caked in dirt, thin as a stick, with hair so matted I cannot tell whether I am looking at a boy or a girl. Why on earth did they bring someone back? I keep that off my face. I have taken in 7 disciples already, and not one has produced so much as a thread of Origin Chi, which has taken much the enthusiasm out of expanding the ranks. The path of immortal cultivation is not a road everyone gets to walk. Anyone who cannot cultivate will end up a burden on the Clear Sky sect, so from here on the recruiting needs to be careful. Jang Okchun sets his pole down and comes over still catching his breath. He tells me a military revolt is broken out in Goju Prefecture, and the roads are full of refugees, and that the child behind him followed them for 30 miles. Neither of them could bring themselves to leave the child on the road, he says, and he quotes 3rd junior brother's opinion. Anyone stubborn enough to follow that far would make something of themselves if that stubbornness were pointed at martial arts. 30 miles is not a small thing. Forget a child that size. A grown adult would be finished after walking that far without stopping, and there is still a mountain to climb at the end of it. I look at the little beggar, somehow still upright, and admit that is worth something. Then I ask how a military revolt happened, and whether they ran into trouble getting home. Jang Ok-chun says no trouble, that with the army running loose there were hardly any bandits left on the roads. In the city they learned the whole realm has been unsettled these last few years, that the government is useless, and that famine is breaking out everywhere. There is nothing I can do about any of that, and I feel about it exactly as much as a man who can do nothing is entitled to feel. What I want to know is where they got the money for that much steel, and I ask outright whether they robbed anybody. He laughs, jerks his thumb back at Gang Joha, and says it is all thanks to third junior brother. His swordsmanship impressed a certain aristocratic family in the city badly enough that their young master tried to recruit him into the household. He turned it down and they rewarded him with a heavy bag of money anyway, saying they would visit the Clear Sky Sect sometime. I ask whether they simply took it for nothing. He says of course not, that they promised in return that if that family ever runs into trouble and sends word, we will do everything we can for them. I tell him he's exactly right, that this is how a relationship works, deepening through exchange in both directions. The other side was generous, and for a sect in our position, they are worth having. Nobody should owe anyone for no reason, and this is a good chance for the Clear Sky Sect's name to travel. If what Im Simpung left me had been a major school with deep foundations, none of us would need to go down that mountain. Up here the resources are limited and recruiting is hard, so dealing with the world is not optional. I also need this sect to grow if I am going to grow. These past weeks have made it clear that my cultivation aptitude does not compare to Gang Johas. I go down to the underground spirit lake every other day and still have not broken into the second layer of the nourishing origin realm. I copied a destiny once. I can do it again. The disciples get the luggage inside, and along with the weapons the two of them brought back a great many seeds, which makes it a good haul. Jang Ok-chun brings the little beggar in front of me and says joining the Clear Sky Sect requires the sect leader's approval, and his own word does not count for it. The child looks about 8 or 9 and does not come up to my shoulder. She looks up at me with startlingly clear eyes and asks me to take her in, then kneels straight down on the stone and kowtows. The other disciples watch with open curiosity until I look at them, and then the luggage suddenly needs carrying inside. With only Jang Ok-chun and the beggar and me left at the mountain gate, the setting sun pulls our shadows out long across the ground. I look down at the child without telling her to rise and ask for a name and a family. Once she is inside the sect, I can cross-check whatever she tells me against the panel and know whether she lied, and guarding against people is simply necessary. What I am really afraid of is that she is trailing some enormous vendetta that drags the Clear Sky Sect into a whirlpool. With her forehead pressed flat to the ground, she answers in a voice worn down to a rasp. Her name is Seo Young. She lived with her father as long as she can remember, the two of them leaning on each other, until he died a year ago, and since then she has kept herself alive on scraps. I ask whether there are any distant relatives, and she says there are none. That settles it for me entirely. I tell her to swear the 3 oaths and she can enter the sect, and Jang Ok-chun steps in at once to have her repeat them after him. When she finishes reciting, I reach down and help her up myself. I tell her the Clear Sky Sect does not keep idlers, but that once she is one of us, she is one of us. She will not go hungry again and can hold her head up like a proper person from here on. She looks up with eyes so flat and numb that not one word of it has landed. I do not mind, because that speech was a formality and we both got through it. I tell Jang Ok-chun to take her inside and get her bathed and into clean clothes. He nods and leads her off, and when he reaches for her hand, she slips it away, and he lets it go, assuming she is shy. I follow at a distance, pulling up the Dao lineage panel and finding her portrait in the disciple details. The portrait is delicate and fair, and if I did not know it was a new entry, I would have real trouble connecting that face with the creature at the gate. A girl. I click through and read her properly. The panel gives me her name and tells me she is female and 9 years old. Her loyalty to the sect leader sits at 70, and her loyalty to the sect at 90, out of a maximum of 100. Her cultivation aptitude reads outstanding, and her comprehension ability reads excellent. Her destiny lists 3 entries: Heavenly Thunder Spiritual Root, Obsessive, and Competitive. The Heavenly Thunder Spiritual Root is a rare single-attribute spiritual root with extremely outstanding talent for Thunder attribute Dao techniques. And the panel notes, Lightning Tribulation is actually beneficial to whoever holds it. Obsessive means that once she has decided something, it will not change even unto death. And Competitive means she was born strong-willed and cannot stand being beneath anyone. My breathing goes shallow and fast. Cultivation aptitude outstanding and comprehension ability excellent is the exact inverse of Gang Joha's pair, which at minimum means this 9-year-old beggar is nobody's inferior. From everything I have seen, the ranks for both run from extremely low up through unranked, mediocre, fair, excellent, and outstanding at the top. I have not run into anything above that yet, and the Heavenly Thunder spiritual root destiny is no small thing on its own. The part I keep coming back to is the loyalty. Her loyalty to the sect hit 90 the instant she swore, while her loyalty to me personally sits well below it. I wonder whether the obsessive destiny did that, whether she walked through the gate and decided this place was home, and closed the question forever. Gang Jo-ha and Seo Young as the left and right protectors of the Clear Sky Sect. Both of them pointed outward at anyone stupid enough to come up this mountain. I can see it already. I come into the courtyard to find Jang Okchin trying to steer Seo Young into a room while she plants her feet and refuses to go in, and will not say why. I tell Lee Dongwol, watching the performance from a few paces off, to take charge of Seo Young and get her bathed and changed. Both Jang Okchun and the girl turn and look at me. Jang Okchun asks what is going on, and I glare at him and tell him she is a girl, and ask what he thinks he is doing. That word goes through him like cold water and he steps back fast, staring at her. Seo Young turns away and walks toward Lee Dongwol, who has already come in to meet her. Jang Okchun edges over and asks under his breath how I could possibly be so sure she is a girl. I tell him his senior brother's discernment is beyond him. He asks why I did not mention it earlier, and I tell him I assumed he knew. Then he glances after the two of them and wonders aloud whether he ought to go and confirm it, in case I have misjudged. I tell him fourth junior sister is not mute. I leave that where it lands and walk over to the crowd around the luggage, where Yang Joljung has come out and is running the disciples through the weapons one at a time. Credit where it is owed. The range of what those two brought back is wide, and there is not a defective piece in the pile. I pick up a longsword, turn it in the light, and tell Gang Joha beside me that he did well. He says of course, and that from now on I can relax whenever he handles anything, and should concentrate on being sect leader while he manages the rest. I ask him whether he's trying to push me out of my own job. He says that is nonsense and asks whether I am that sort of person, then points out that I do nothing all day while he teaches fifth junior brother. I tell him that is exactly why I am sect leader, since I have a great deal to think about. We go at each other a while and nobody interrupts, because the others learned long ago not to. Sword in hand, I wonder whether one of these blades could cultivate the supreme sword control art. The New Year's celebration arrives, and with Jang Okchun and Gang Joha both home, my mood is excellent. The whole Clear Sky Sect in motion from first light. Older disciples hang lanterns, kill chickens, and wash vegetables, while the younger nod around Yang Jojung for martial world stories. I sit and listen with them, my attention sliding to Seo Young, scrubbed and in clean clothes and looking like a different child from yesterday. The dark circles and sharp bones still keep her far from the girl on the panel, but the resemblance is there. She stands at the back of the group, listening, not mixed in with anyone. I take a roasted corn cob off the plate beside me and tell her to come here. Her eyes go straight to it, and after a moment she comes over cautiously, and I hand it to her without making a speech. She thanks me quietly and is turning away when I tell her to sit beside me, where she will hear the story better. She glances over, sees I am listening to Yang Joljong, and sits down and starts nibbling. A burst of wailing pulls my head around. Lee Sapung comes tearing into the courtyard howling that third senior brother nearly beat him to death, crying like his heart is coming apart while every face watches. I go and deal with my sixth junior brother. Seo Young's eyes follow me the whole way, wide open, with a little more life in them than yesterday. The New Year noise dies down and the sect goes back to what it was, a mountain where the ones who cultivate, and the ones who swing weapons. A month after the lanterns come down, I break through to the second layer of the nourishing Origin realm beside the underground spirit lake, Origin chi swelling several times over. My first thought is not triumph but arithmetic, because Gang Joha did this faster and without a lake. The disciples take turns down here, but I come more than any of them. And Gang Joha says outright that I should come every day since I have nothing else to do. I raised those junior brothers and sisters myself, so watching me take the best of the water does not strike them as unfair. If anything, they think it is owed. The stronger the sect leader, the further the Clear Sky Sect travels, and they work that out without any prompting. Lee Dongwol sits across the water and asks whether I have broken through, since she felt the spiritual chi tilt toward me and disturbed her absorption. I open my eyes and tell her yes, that the second layer of the Hanwhan scripture is open to me. She looks envious, then asks what she has been sitting on. Yang Juljong told her the martial world sorts fighters into tiers, and she wants to know whether the second layer counts as a first-rate master or goes past one. She is thinking of Gang Joha killing Na Yeol in one stroke. It was an ambush, but Na Yeol was a first-rate master, so whoever kills him is close to the same shelf. I tell her I have no idea, and that we do not practice to measure ourselves against others. What a cultivator trains is the heart, judged not by this afternoon, but by the long years after. She nods and says she was only curious. We talk a little more, then fall quiet, and 2 hours later we climb out. Dusk by the time we reach the sect. Most of the disciples have gathered in the courtyard, arguing over what they learned today, while Seo Young waits alone outside the kitchen for the dishes. Apart from the Hanwon scripture, they spend their hours on martial arts with Yang Joljung, and their bodies have hardened, though none move as fast as Lee Sapung. Seo Young has not been given it, because Lee Dongwol and Jang Ok-chun will not teach it without a word from me. And Yang Joljung has not touched it either. That is not modesty. For a martial artist, swapping internal skills on his own is close to a capital offense against himself, unless the new one is enormously better. Changing means rebuilding internal chi from nothing. No job for a month or two. I come up behind Seo Young and ask whether she wants to cultivate. She jumps, turns, and asks carefully whether I mean an internal skill. She works harder at unarmed combat than any of them, which Yang Jiljung compliments often. But the man leans toward boys without noticing, and his attention goes to Lee Sapung. The moves he hands the rest are nothing special. So I tell her yes, the Clear Sky Sect's own internal skill, and let the answer sit. Her face changes completely. Yang Jiljung's internal chi display marked her, because she says she wants it, then says it again, eyes lit. It is the first excitement I have seen on her. So I ask what she should call me, if I am to teach her an internal skill. She tries sect leader and I make a small sound, so she tries master, nervous, knowing what that word costs. In the martial world, the master-disciple bond outranks a father's. I tell her to kowtow 3 times, and that from today, she is my first disciple. Jang Ok-chun looks over from the stove, still holding a pan. Then Gang Joha's voice crosses the courtyard asking how my first disciple can be a girl. And there he is, with a sword in his hand. Since he picked up that iron blade, he has been all edge and appetite, aura uncovered, audible from dozens of feet off. Everyone here has quietly agreed he is the strongest of us. Every head turns, Yang Joljung's included, and Seyong's face goes scarlet. But the look she throws Gang Joha is not embarrassment, it is offense. I say she is a girl and that she may well end up stronger than he is. Seyong's eyes fill up. I tilt my head at the ground and she drops and kowtows 3 times. My first disciple. I let out a long breath because leaving a talent like hers uncultivated would have kept me awake. And if she grows too strong, she becomes a problem for the man in my chair. So, a little stagecraft was necessary. With an obsessive destiny in her, she has bolted herself to me and will not come loose. She may resent Gang Joha's remark, but never to hatred, because he pulled her out of the road. I tell everyone to eat, pull her up, brush off her knees, and smile the way a decent person would. There has to be a difference between an ordinary disciple and a direct one. It occurs to me uncomfortably that this feels like raising a daughter, though I am 7 years older than she is. A sect leader taking a disciple is a large event here, and the dinner table talks of nothing else. 2 or 3 bolder children put themselves forward and are turned down flat, though Jang Ok-chun and Lee Dongwol each take 1. Gang Joha thinks little of any of them, and his face keeps them from trying. Yang Joljung sets down his wine bowl, sighs that first disciple is no small position in any school, and asks whether I am sure she can carry it. Seo Young's jaw tightens. There is no arguing with what he sees. A girl small, thin, 9, and not his precious Lee Sapung. It is a grief to him that Lee Sapung stands in my generation and can be nobody's disciple. I answer that it does not matter, because the Clear Sky Sect belongs to the martial world but does not walk the road of competition. I care less for her level than her character, and I believe this child will satisfy me. That speech was for her, not for him. I nearly applauded the man. I did not bribe him to set me up like that, and yet here he was, pushing his face into the frame for free. Lee Dongwol closes the matter, saying Seong is senior brother's disciple now and therefore everyone's junior niece, and they should look forward. Lee Sejum bursts out laughing and repeats junior niece twice, delighted. She is a year older than Seo Young, but they read the other way around, because Lee Sejum is still a child while Seo Young carries herself like someone who has already paid for things. Her face loosens and she smiles, then puts food into Lee Sejum's bowl. I pull up the Dao lineage panel and check her loyalty. 99 out of 99, straight to the ceiling. That is the highest loyalty a person is capable of. because a flat 100 is not something a human carries around. I can cultivate her without a single reservation now. 3 days later, I take Seo Young and Lee Se-jium to the underground spirit lake and teach her the Hanwon scripture. The two chatter non-stop, but Seo Young wants this badly enough that her focus drags Lee Se-jium along. Then the girl cultivates her first wisp of origin chi in 1 hour. 1. With the lake helping, but still. Lee Se-jium's mouth falls open, and I braced for fast and am still knocked sideways. I tell Lee Se-jium to keep this to herself, and that if anyone asks, it took Se-young a full day to raise internal chi. She asks why, and I tell her I am worried about setting her third senior brother off. She pictures Gang Jo-ha's face going sour, and nods, having privately decided he is petty and quick to sulk, and she is not wrong. Even with the story I planted, a girl who raises origin chi inside a day rattles Jang Ok-chun and the others. Cultivators read origin chi off each other the way ordinary people read a limp. Yang Jiljong and the second generation notice nothing, but my junior brothers and sisters clock it the instant they see her. Gang Jo-ha adjusts the least, having decided the lake did it, and in open air she would never match him. Watching her come along like that makes me greedy about what this sect could turn into. The 7 village disciples still cannot cultivate origin chi, so I put them fully onto martial arts. The lake cannot take too many eyes anyway, and crowding it would slow everyone already using it. Spring goes, summer comes, and I pass my 17th birthday without mentioning it. My junior brothers and sisters believe it falls in autumn, and I have never corrected them, because I have no appetite for being sung at. That afternoon I sit on the grass before the mountain gate, with 9 swords laid out, building the connection each needs before the supreme sword control art works. Movement on the mountain path pulls my head up. A man walks out of the trees in a yellow robe with a sword across his back. Tall, a martial artist from 100 paces. He sees me, breaks into a bright smile, and steps up to ask whether this is the Clear Sky Sect. I ask him irritably whether he cannot see the words carved above my head. 3 large characters at a size that makes blindness a moral choice. He is not offended at all. He chuckles and says he saw them but wanted to hear me say it, then introduces himself as the new sect leader of my Clear Sky Sect, a man named Mo Gugyo. That stops my thinking for a second. We have 3 courtyards and a pile of children, and nothing here worth taking. I ask who sent him, and I ask it carefully. If Im Simpung is behind this, I handle it like a diplomat. And if not, and this man came to take my mountain by force, I owe him no politeness. While I speak, I sweep my right hand across the 9 swords and keep my eyes on his face. He walks toward me laughing and explains that my master announced his retirement at the Soyo martial arts tournament. With the man retired, he says, the sect can hardly hold territory this size, so better he takes it over. Everything clicks into shape. The Taegon mountain range is enormous and rich and carries 1 school, and the reason is the reputation Im Simpung carved out of other people's bodies. Remove him, and every school within reach starts measuring the ground. If my master wanted the immortal realm, he could have taken it. There was no need to announce it to a hall of strangers, although on second thought, he probably did it precisely to be found. A man's enemies do not knock and negotiate. They arrive and start killing, and Mo Gugyo only wants my chair. So I ask what the disciples get out of it if he becomes sect leader. He smiles and says, we would become his disciples, and admits he comes from the 7 Peaks Alliance. Once he holds the seat, we are folded into the alliance and protected. A rare stroke of luck, since territory in the martial world usually costs blood. I nod along, because he is not wrong. I tell him he is right that territory costs blood, then ask whether I may refuse. I do not stand, staying cross-legged on the grass with 9 swords before my knees. He gives me a half smile and asks whether I am not going to consult my sect leader. I tell him I am the sect leader. That stops him mid-stride. He looks me up and down, his face doing something complicated, and mutters that rumors said only Im Simpung survived the bloodbath 20 years ago. Apparently it is all true, he says, if the man really handed the seat to a child. Then he shakes his head and laughs at himself, regretting the entire conversation. He tells me I have no room to refuse, that either I submit, or he pulls out our tongues, takes our eyes, and keeps us as slaves for life. His face turns ugly on the last part and he takes another step toward me. I narrow my eyes and start to move, then catch something behind me and let my hand relax. A shout goes off like a bell. Yang Zhojiang comes off the mountain wall, clears the mountain gate, and lands on the steps between us light as a goose on water. Mo Gugyo frowns and asks who he is, cursing me for the lie since no sane man hands a school to a child. Yang Juljong gives his name and asks whether the man has heard of him, his voice rolling across the hillside with every bit of aura he owns. Mo Gugyo's face empties out and he grinds out the words dragon-subduing hero, saying he never tied that name to the Clear Sky Sect. Yang Juljong tells him he is hearing it now and to get off the mountain. His internal chi surges until his robes snap, and he looks down like a tiger deciding whether the meal is worth standing up for. Mo Gugyo cycles through shock and fury into fear, because his reputation is nowhere near Yang Juljong's. But he came a long way and hates walking home empty-handed. After a long silence, he pulls in a breath, salutes and turns to go. I tell Yang Juljong to beat him to death. Mo Gugyo's face comes apart and his walk turns into a run. Yang Juljong turns to stare at me, and whatever is on my face makes something in him drop, because he has never seen me wear it. I tell him it is an order, to be carried out now. He sets his teeth and goes down, and Mo Gugyo is already into the trees. That hesitation tells me a great deal. Without those hands, the martial world would have eaten him years ago without leaving a bone. 2 lifetimes and 1 hard childhood here taught me what this place is, and I made my peace with it before I sat in the sect leader's chair. Killing is part of the arrangement. I will not hunt innocents, but anyone reaching for my mountain gets no mercy. That is why I never blamed Gang Jo-ha for Nayol. I admired it, so I sit and wait, unworried he lets the man go, because this was never only about Mo Gugyo. It is a test. If he fails it, he can practice martial arts for life, and the sect will keep him on to watch the gate. As for the Seven Peaks Alliance, if it cannot be avoided, I will meet it face first, because a school of cultivators is not frightened off its own mountain by martial artists. And judging by where Yang Juljong picked up the Supreme Sword Control Art, other cultivators exist, which means cultivation sects hidden from the world, or outside the Li dynasty. I am already sketching enemies I have not met. An incense stick later, Yang Juljong comes out of the forest with Mo Gugyo over his shoulder. The limbs hang loose, the body moves like wet clay, blood across the back. His own hair is out of order. He drops the man in front of me, unconscious rather than dead. I ask what would have happened had he let the man go. His face tightens and he says the man would have come back with more people. I tell him the man announced he was from the Seven Peaks Alliance and meant to seize the sect by force. My dissatisfaction sits plainly in my voice, because my word as sect leader was not enough. I said beat him to death. The phrase Seven Peaks Alliance changes his eyes. 20 years of practice gave him remarkable hearing, and yet all he caught was the threat aimed at me, not the name behind it. He takes a breath and drives his right foot down into Mo Gugyo's back. The man's eyes fly open, he throws up a mouthful of blood, and he dies. I check that he is dead, gather my 9 swords, tell Yang Juljong to bury the body and wash the ground, and walk away. Behind me, he works through a complicated feeling that a boy just intimidated him. This kid is not simple. He decides no wonder he keeps that Gang Jo-ha in line. Then the arithmetic stops adding up, because he came out to help and is the one holding a shovel. He is indignant and picks up the corpse anyway. Then he sees Gang Jo-ha and Omana coming out of the forest, and the thought that hits him is unpleasant. If he had not caught Mo Gugyo on the path, the man would have run into Gang Jo-ha, and the outcome would have been the same corpse with worse manners. So his hesitation was a mistake, and I was right. He has discovered that I run deeper than he estimated, and that with Gang Jo-ha behind me, there is no punishment he could refuse. I do not cover up Mo Gugyo's death. Yang Juljong's shout carried to every disciple, and I want them holding a particular picture of us. The Clear Sky Sect kills, and we are no small ascetic righteous path school starving in the deep mountains. As for the authorities, you need a living witness and a body, and this world has no eyes on its roads. Besides, name me one school that did not climb onto a heap of bones to get famous. 7 days later, nobody is thinking about it. The weather turns cool and I sit facing Gang Jo-ha in the forest, arms folded, as pleased with myself as I feel. He holds the thin skin the Supreme Sword Control Art is written on, eyes shining since he opened it. He reads it through and asks whether I am really willing to hand over an ultimate art, since a sect leader keeps something back. He is moved, because he was waiting to see whether my new title would make me guard myself against him. I tell him irritably to consider whether I am that kind of person, and that I want him the strongest man here for as long as he lives. Then I tell him it is settled, that he assists me for a lifetime, and does not run off part way. He laughs, admits he thought about running once, says he does not want to anymore, and will always cover me. At my rate, I will not catch Gang Jo-ha, and grinding my teeth changes nothing, so better to grow him as fast as he goes. When the sect climbs to its next level, I copy a destiny again and jump the whole line. Meanwhile, letting Gang Joha stand out front as the visible strongest suits me, while I quietly become the thing nobody sees coming. I have plenty of competitive spirit. It's simply never turned into a destiny entry. He asks whether I have already learned the technique. I laugh in his face and tell him I got it in one look. He does not doubt me, and the pressure settles onto him, because my comprehension of the sword Dao is the most frightening thing he has met. Then he looks at the skin and says something I would rather he had not thought of. When they practice, they draw on the chi of heaven and earth like anyone, but the spiritual chi they take in feels different, and those who train internal skill cannot perceive it. Yang Jiljung does not even know the word, and he wants to know why. A junior brother this clever is a liability, and I am reminded constantly. I raise an eyebrow and ask who I am supposed to ask, since he is asking me. Then I tell him fine. I will come clean, that we are not practicing martial arts. We are cultivating. He stares and asks whether I can please be serious for once. Lee Sapung comes crashing in right then, and Gang Joha's hand is fast enough that the skin is pocketed before the boy clears the trees. Lee Sapung is bouncing, shouting that second senior brother found a nest of eagle chicks and we have to come and look. The whole sect is packed into the courtyard by the time I get there, Yang Jiljung up on his toes at the back to see over the children. I squat in the middle of the crowd. On the ground is a nest holding 3 chicks and 2 unhatched eggs, covered in dark gray down, their beaks settling the species immediately. Too young to fly, they chirp and bump into each other while broken shell lies scattered around. Jang Ok-chun explains where he found it. When he went down the mountain, he bought herb books, having decided to learn medicine, and has been climbing peaks with them looking for plants ever since. That is how he spotted the nest. He tells it with a great deal of danger in it, and the disciples make the appropriate noises. Looking at the chicks, I think about the Tao Protection Divine Beast field sitting empty on my panel, and wonder whether birds can walk the cultivator's road. Huang San asks his master whether he saw the parents. He is Jang Ok-chun's eldest disciple, oldest of the 7 from the village, 13, and the natural leader of that circle. He has never raised a thread of origin chi, but his martial arts talent is good, and he is strongest of the 7. Jang Ok-chun shakes his head and says that if he had met the parents, it would not have gone so smoothly. I stand and tell him he did well, then tell them all to raise the chicks and hatch those 2 eggs. In time, these birds become the Tao Protection Divine Beast of the Clear Sky Sect. When the martial world sees eagles overhead, they will know we have arrived and get out of the road, and I ask whether that would not be fine. Every pair of eyes lights up, Gang Joha staring at the nest like a man planning a coronation. Yang Jiljung pours cold water on it, since eagles are not dogs, and a grown one will leave. I tell him, that is why we will think of more methods. Life up here is cultivating and then cultivating some more. A pet is not the worst idea anyone has had. The disciples argue about methods and I let them run, dropping in questions to widen it wherever it narrows. The Clear Sky Sect is too monotonous, and I want these children generating ideas the way Jang Ok-chun generated a herb book and a nest of eagles. Somewhere in that conversation it occurs to me that this place has no structure. There should be a monthly meeting with my 6 junior brothers and sisters to plan the month ahead, partly so we stop drifting and partly so they learn to think above their own eye level. Martial arts practice should split into branches so the sect's martial Dao grows more than one limb. The cultivating disciples become the elite tier, since the Dao lineage reward for that is already collected. What matters now is foundation. Internal affairs need rules, finances need a plan, resources need long-term development, and that wasteland needs reclaiming. The more I turn it over, the more time presses on my neck. We have been far too loose. That night, I call all 6 into my room, including Mana, though he is slow, and Lee Sapung and Lee Sejiam, though they are young. The 7 of us talk ourselves into a fever, and Gang Joa of all people puts forward several ideas worth keeping. When we break up, each holds a smaller meeting with their disciples, and the sect stays awake most of the night. At morning exercises, half the mountain has shadows under its eyes. Yang Jiljung stands on the summit stretching, looking down at all that motion, and something in him turns over. In 10 years, he thinks, the Clear Sky Sect will be known across the world. Perhaps he ought to work harder himself. So he decides to take the 7 village disciples seriously, since they will be the spine of whatever this becomes. Seo Young he writes off, not from dislike but from realism, since that girl now listens to exactly one person, and it is not him. The disciples stop fitting inside 3 courtyards. They go down to the forest at the foot of the mountain to train, and Yang Jiljung follows and works through them one at a time. I watch a while, and my opinion of him quietly improves. 3 months later, Deep in the heat, Lee Sapung lies under a tree halfway up the mountain and cannot settle his mind. He is a couple of thousand feet below the school and alone, because I told him to let nobody see him practice the swift wind technique. He has been at it half a month without catching the trick, and is near quitting. He tells the branches that cultivating is overrated, hands laced behind his head, one foot swinging over his crossed knee. There are 100 things he would rather do with an afternoon. Today he had planned to dig out a mouse nest, since the big one got away last time, and he has carried the grudge since. Voices carry up the slope and he sits up. Two figures come through the weeds, an old man and a boy, both worn down by travel. The boy in cloth clothes points and calls out that there is a child up there. The old man behind him is tall and heavily built, white-haired and still solid, a pack on his shoulders. He sees Lee Sapung and frowns, because this is far above the village and no child should have crossed it. Then he asks whether the boy is a Clear Sky Sect disciple. Lee Sapung does not run. He stays sitting, says that he is, and asks who they are. Hearing the answer, the boy in cloth clothes breaks into a jog, the old man calling after him to slow down, addressing him as young master. The boy announces cheerfully that he is Gang Neon, 13, then asks for a name and an age in return. Lee Sapung says he is Lee Sapung, 13 as well, and notices the other boy is taller, which he resents. The old man comes up and asks the little brother whether his master Im Simpung is around. Lee Sapung says his master left long ago and asks whether they missed the retirement announcement at that Soyo martial arts gathering. Since then I have stopped making the disciples hide it. The old man does not look disappointed. He smiles and asks whether Gang Joha is still at the school. Lee Sapung goes cold. He asks how the man knows his third senior brother, the surname already ringing in his head. Both of them named Gang. He is afraid of Gang Joha on a normal day, but the bond between the brothers goes to the bone, and all of them are orphans who never knew each other's histories. It never occurred to him that third senior brother might have family at the bottom of this mountain. And if third senior brother leaves, what happens to the Clear Sky Sect? He may be loud and young, but his mind runs deeper than his mouth. And in 4 seconds, he has every bad outcome available. The sect cannot survive without Gang Joha. Gang Nyun smiles and says the man is his brother, and they came to bring him home. He is a handsome boy, fair-skinned, and the smile is warm and easy to like. In Lee Sapung's eyes, it is the most irritating thing on the mountain. Lee Sapung waves a hand, arranges his face into helpless sympathy, and says third senior brother went down the mountain with his master a while ago, so they wasted the trip. The old man frowns and asks whether they might stay the night, since it is too late to descend. Lee Sapung says there are other guests and no room. The old man says they will go and look, and does not budge, because Lee Sapung is 13 and transparent, and already red. He takes Gang Nyun by the arm and starts up the mountain, and Lee Sapung throws himself in front of them, shouting that they may not. The old man keeps his patience and asks the little brother why he stands between them and young Master Gang. Lee Sapung glares and says they abandoned third senior brother once and now want to collect him, and asks what right they have to decide anything. The old man says there were reasons back then, and the boy is too young to have it explained. If third senior brother comes home, he says he can live far better than he lives on this mountain. Then he adds kindly that if Lee Sapung cannot bear the separation, he is welcome to come along. Gang Nyan has taken to him and agrees, saying his father is a high official now and life at home is good. None of it moves Lee Sapung. It frightens him more, because every sentence sounds like Gang Joha walking away. He shouts that no means no, and they should not think about going up. Both small fists clenched. Then he pulls a dagger off his belt, and the blade catches the light. That makes the old man laugh. He strokes his beard and asks whether the child knows him. In the martial world, he says, drawing a weapon on him is something no god could save a person from. Lee Sapung stiffens his neck and calls it garbage, in language he picked up from me. The old man does not recognize the phrase, but he understands the tone perfectly. His face goes cold and he says he will teach the boy on Im Simpung's behalf how to speak to elders, and reaches for him. Lee Sapung moves first. His left hand comes up like a snapped wire, closes on the old man's right wrist, and hauls. The old man is not braced and comes stumbling forward off his own balance. The follow-up is already traveling. The dagger goes for his chest and the old man's pupils blow wide in disbelief. The old man's right foot slams down and his internal chi detonates, tearing his wrist out of the boy's grip and throwing his body backward. Even so, the dagger opens his chest and the blood comes. He retreats a dozen steps, touches the wound, finds it shallow, and lets his breath out. Then he looks at his right hand, at a shredded sleeve and 3 raw lines across his wrist, and something changes behind his eyes. This child is unreasonably strong and unreasonably fast. Gang Nyun stands with dust all over his face and cannot process what he watched. Grandpa Du is the finest martial artist he knows, and a boy his age just cut him. He saw it clearly. There was no ambush. Grandpa Du reached first and lost the race. The old man Du Hyunpung takes a slow breath, asks in a low voice for the boy's name, and compliments the skill. Lee Sapung sets his teeth and tells him to get off the mountain and not to make him kill anyone. He admires how Gang Joha looks when he kills. And now that it is his turn, he is close to shaking. On an ordinary day, he has no murder in him. But where the sect is concerned, the urge will not be talked down. Gang Joha is the strongest thing they own, and if he leaves and the Seven Peaks Alliance and the Azure Sect come up in force, it is finished. Du Hyunpung smiles at the threat, cold, killing intent coming up out of his eyes. He circulates his energy until his robe and hair start lifting, the pressure off him thickening by the second. He says he has heard those exact words a great many times in the martial world, and nobody ever made them true. His voice changes and he starts calling himself this old man, and the pleasant traveler of 10 minutes ago is nowhere in the clearing. Lee Sapung is terrified. Then he pulls the origin chi out of his body, and his courage comes with it, and his face turns savage. If Do Hyunpung is an old tiger with a temper, the boy is a lone wolf with no manners at all. As the two close, Gang Neon backs away, and keeps backing away. A voice cuts across the clearing asking Sapung what he thinks he is doing, and the boy's face falls apart. He turns in a panic. Gang Joha stands on a large tree not far off, on a branch too thin to hold anyone, and in his worn cloth clothes he looks like something out of a scripture. He is expressionless and not looking at Lee Sapung. He is looking at Do Hyunpung. Do Hyunpung goes cold for no reason he can name. He has spent his life in the martial world, and the only people who ever frightened him with a glance were famous men at the top of it. This one is a boy. When did the Clear Sky Sect acquire two peerless geniuses? Lee Sapung already made him feel real danger, and the youth on the branch outclasses him. And his instincts say that if he moves, he dies badly. Lee Sapung starts to say his third senior brother's name and gets no further, because there is nothing left to hide. Du Hyunpung asks, astonished, whether this is Gang Joha, and Gang Yeon calls to his big brother in open delight, because the figure on the branch beats anything he imagined. Gang Joha does not react to being called anyone's brother. He keeps his eyes on Do Hyunpung and asks Lee Sapung whether his word has stopped carrying. Lee Sapung starts trembling and pours out the whole encounter as fast as he can. Inwardly, he has written his own ending, which is that third senior brother beats him senseless, because putting a blade into third senior brother's family is no small crime. Gang Joha listens to all of it without moving a muscle in his face. Then he snorts and tells the boy he did well, but not well enough, and that he should simply have killed them. Du Hyunpung did not expect that. Neither did Gang Yeon. Neither did Lee Sapung, who is on the receiving end of it. He swallows and says carefully that they came looking for third senior brother, and the boy there is his younger brother. Gang Joa tells him flatly that he has two younger brothers, and they are Lee Sapung and Omana. Lee Sapung goes quiet with his chest full, and under the warmth is a sadness he is too young to trace. Du Hyunpung jumps in and says the matter back then was not what Gang Joa believes. His father letting Im Simpung carry the boy up the mountain was a decision with no good options. Gang Joha says he has no interest in what the man thought, and believes only what he saw and remembers. He draws the sword at his waist, levels it across the clearing, and tells him this is his last chance. Du Hyunpung's face works. Then he grinds out that they are leaving, addressing the boy as young master, and the two go. Gang Joha sheathes the blade, steps off the branch, and comes down in front of Lee Sapung light as a dropped coat, and the boy sees the air twist as he lands. He asks whether that was the swift wind technique. Gang Joha smacks his head and tells him his cultivation is thin and his body unfinished, so next time he meets a strong enemy, he kills with the first blow. Lee Sapung rubs his skull and asks whether third senior brother genuinely wants him killing people. Gang Joha says of course, turns, and walks off, and Lee Sapung scrambles after him, admiring his third senior brother for the first time and wanting to be exactly that. In the distance, towed by Do Hyunpung, Gang Yeon looks back at the two walking away together. They look more like brothers than anything waiting for him at home. The sun comes down hard through the trees and they are gone. Inside the courtyard, I work a brush across paper while Lee Dongwol drives the heat off my neck with a fan. She is soaked through and shows no sign of stopping, and her eyes do not leave me. I catch Gang Joha and Lee Sapung coming back in, and think nothing of it, because I am busy writing out the Hanwon scripture. Then Gang Joha walks over and tells me the whole thing. I glare at Lee Sepeng and inform him he has grown remarkable nerve, acting first and reporting afterward. Lee Tongwol is looking at the boy in a completely new way, having had no idea he had that in him. Lee Sepeng says, aggrieved, that he was afraid third senior brother would leave with them. Gang Joha snorts and settles it. His father, wanting to marry a powerful noble's daughter, drove his mother to her death and meant to dispose of the son too. If Im Simpeng had not arrived, the man's own disciples would have finished the job. He says returning is not possible under any circumstances, then calls me great master and tells me he will support me forever. The Gang family is an aristocratic family of martial artists, and like a great many schools, they have been scrubbing their hands. When Im Simpeng first brought Gang Joha up here, I overheard him telling the story to a friend, and it matched. I glare at Lee Sepeng again and tell him to remember one thing. Whatever it is, he asks me first. Whether I approve is a separate question, but I hear about it before it happens. I am the sect leader and not merely his senior brother. The boy is starting to show the shape of his destiny, and I will have to watch that. I am not worried about him betraying me, because the loyalty numbers say what they say. What worries me is that he will do something catastrophic for the best possible reasons and drag himself under. I am not cultivating immortality only for myself. I intend to take every one of these junior brothers and sisters up that road, and not one gets left behind. I raised them all, changed their cloth, walked them to sleep. Somewhere along the way, they became my family. Lee Sepeng mutters that he knows, lower lip out, playing the harmless kitten he always plays in front of me and Lee Dongwol. I wave him off and tell him to go amuse himself, because looking at him is making my hand itch. He can tell I am genuinely angry and removes himself at speed. Gang Joha frowns and says the Gang family showing up is not only about him, that they came looking at the sect too. He is right. The school is small, and the territory is not, and that gap is what attracts people. I tell him I have a plan, that when soldiers come, you meet them with generals, and when the water rises, you meet it with earth. Then I tell him to take Huang-san and Murim to the nearest town tomorrow to buy fabric, hire a tailor, and bring the man up, because I intend to have proper robes made. I tell him not to be careful with the money. Everyone here wears clothes mended more times than they were worn new. We look like a farming household, not a school. Gang Johan nods and says he will look into other ways of making money. I tell him to take care of those two boys, that he may work them hard but they come back whole. Huang-san and Yu Rim are the oldest of the second generation, and I have plans for both, so I want them shaped now. He says he will be measured about it and leaves. I turn to Lee Dongwol and tell her to rest, since her senior brother is not that hot. She says she is not tired, then asks whether the robes will all be identical or the male and female disciples get different ones. Sweat runs down her cheeks in fat beads, her hair stuck flat to her face. There is no arguing with her like this, so I let her keep fanning. I tell her there will be differences, but the effect has to make people see. One school at a glance. She says that is wonderful, then asks to go with second senior brother to the village tomorrow to trade for grain seeds and take Lee Sejium and Seo Young. I tell her, of course. And if there is real work, she leaves it to Jang Okchun and at most helps carry. She promises she will remember. We talk of nothing much while the sun drags our shadows across the boards. The sun sets, the moon comes up, and a new day starts. Jang Okchun and Gang Joha each take a group down and the sect goes quiet. I skip the underground spirit lake and hold the ground in case something arrives. After lunch, I go out alone before the mountain gate to meditate and wait. A clean wind moves my hair and my whole mind sinks into stillness. Peaceful, unhurried, nothing pulling at me. So, that is what cultivating immortality feels like. I am an hour into it when Yang Jiljung walks out of the school. Months of recuperation have put him back together, and it shows in the way he holds his eyes, the weight of his stride, and the presence he throws in front of him like a shadow. He sits down beside me and looks me over. Without opening my eyes, I ask what he wants. He says my cultivation technique is strange, and the disturbance it makes when it pulls at the spiritual chi of heaven and earth is enormous. The spiritual chi I draw in, he says, does not feel like the spiritual chi he knows. There are hundreds of schools of thought in the martial world, and he has never seen an internal skill this effective this fast. Months of watching us cultivate and he still cannot see the bottom of it. Which is fair, because it is not the same activity. Martial world practice does absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to raise internal chi, but the acupoints and dantian do the work, and the spiritual chi is only a stimulant. Cultivating origin chi uses the physical body as the vessel, closer to alchemy, refining spiritual chi into something else. There is an ocean of chi between heaven and earth, and spiritual qi is the origin of everything, in every corner of the air, and the hardest kind for a mortal to touch. I open one eye and ask whether he wants to learn. He laughs and asks whether that is even on offer. He never wanted it before, unable to bear throwing away 20 years of accumulated internal skill, but watching what it has done to these children has worn him down. His own internal power has stopped growing anyway, so he may as well look for another road. I tell him, of course, and that I will teach him shortly. I do not hesitate, because I have been watching how he handles the second generation and I am satisfied. He brightens immediately. Apparently I am not heartless, and contribution buys reward, which is a system he understands. Then he brings up what he has chewed on for 2 days, turning serious and asking whether I think the Clear Sky Sect develops too slowly. I open my eyes and invite him to share his brilliant opinion. He points out that the Gang Boy and Jang Ok-chun have gone down again, which means we are short of money, and money is the bottleneck. Enough of it means more food, more forged weapons, more buildings, and a sect that grows quickly. Then he asks whether I've considered cooperating with an aristocratic family or wealthy landowner, taking money and strength for teaching martial arts, or handing over influence. He stops and waits, because if I dislike the idea anything further would insult me. I raise an eyebrow and ask whether he has connections. I have thought about this a long time, and I am not remotely opposed. In a world like this one, the aristocratic families sit on most of the resources, and above all on the books. Cooperation means trained people, because no cultivation school survives on disciples with their heads in a scripture. The Clear Sky Sect I want has master smiths, physicians, scholars, and a tailor or two. I refuse to walk down a mountain every time I want new robes. Eventually I want a city up here, a working system of our own, and I know it will take years. He says he has wandered the martial world long enough to know a great many people, and asks whether he may speak boldly. His spine straightens and he lays it out. A place like ours must avoid any aristocratic family with official power, because such a family swallows what it partners with. We should also avoid any family already entangled with other martial world schools, since untying those knots later would be impossible. What suits us is a newly risen family with no foundation, or a lately rich landowner. Such people lack strength and need armed force to protect what they own, which makes us indispensable and keeps them careful. I look at him with fresh eyes. I had him filed as a blunt instrument, and it turns out he thinks all the way around a problem. He gives me the name. In Maison Township, near the Taegon mountain range, a family surnamed Jin once produced a top scholar. 30 years ago, the dynasty changed hands, and they buried themselves there to stay out of the wreckage. He passed through a few years back and talked with the family head. The Jin family wants to surface again, has been doing business, and is prosperous. I narrow my eyes and point out that they could as easily bring trouble on us. However strong the Clear Sky Sect becomes, it cannot stop the imperial court's thousands of troops and horses. The Jin family hid for a reason, and if somebody calls them remnants of the fallen dynasty we inherited, he answers that they are the closest and most suitable available, and everything else is too far or long since tangled with the martial world. The schools near the Taegon mountain range, he adds, are a mixed and unpleasant bag. Then he says every choice carries risk, and the only question is what a man picks, and whether he gambles on it. That is a fair way to put it. I sit with it a while and he does not push, turning to the mountains and admiring the view. After a time I tell him to invite the family head up the mountain, and that I will speak to the man myself. He claps his hands, says it is no trouble, and is delighted, though not for the reason I would have guessed. What pleases him is that a boy my age will conduct diplomacy at all, and he decides that with that much nerve behind it, nobody should underestimate the Clear Sky Sect. He goes to pack, intending to leave today, and if he moves quickly, he can have the man up here inside 5 days. I stay before the mountain gate meditating until the sun is nearly down. Then Jang Ok-chun and Lee Dongwol and Lee Sajium and Seo Young come out of the trees, a bamboo basket on every back, loaded to the top. Jang Ok-chun is also towing 3 piglets, which complain the entire way up. I admire the second junior brother, because talking that much out of villagers is an achievement with Goju Prefecture, in mutiny and the roads full of refugees. We walk into the school together, and only then do I learn most of it came from the families of Huang San and Yu Rim. That rearranges how I think about disciples whose homes still send things. They are sensible children, and I will put more into them. That night I put 2 disciples on the pigs. 2, because everyone here is small and a job that size needs a partner. The sect is still a school made of children, and half the chores get done in pairs. 5 days later, Gang Joha and the boys are still out, but Yang Joljong comes up the mountain with the Jin family in tow. What arrives is not the family head, but the young lord, Jin Gyo, 25 this year, dressed like money and behaving like a man who has decided to be liked. He comes alone, his father tied up with other business. I take him into the courtyard, Yang Jiljung sitting in. When Jin Gyul settles, Yang Jiljung pours the tea, and the man's curiosity sharpens. He cannot work out how a sect leader this young has the dragon-subduing hero playing host. While we trade pleasantries, he watches the courtyard. Oh, Mana and 3 small ones drill punches, and Lee Sepeng is up on the eaves working sword forms. Sharp enough that nothing about him reads as a child. Once the pleasantries run out, Jin Gyul asks what the sect is worth, and what help it could give the Jin family. I tell him that if the Jin family gets into trouble, I can send 3 men as strong as Yang Jiljong. I can also cultivate his children, and our martial arts are not ordinary. He glances at Yang Jiljung, who nods and says he has joined the sect himself. And if the sect leader orders it, he walks through fire and water. Then he tells Lee Sapeng, up on the eaves, to show them a move.